Chapter 494. Could it be that they had to find a body double to complete the scenes of kissing and holding hands in a youth film? We have to find a body double for kissing and a hand double for holding hands. Why is it so difficult to film a movie? Qin immediately corrected him. We have to find two. Xingzi said that he doesn't want to do kissing or holding hands with a body double. He's a clean freak, so we have to find a few body doubles for him. Lin Fengtian's blood boiled when he heard that. Bastard! He could only curse in anger. Because Mu Yaja had spoken, there was no need to worry about the budget. Huan Yu had plenty of money, so he could spend as much as he wanted. However, if any of these rules were violated, the movie would be scrapped. Qin touched his chin. He felt that the relationship between Yun Shirshir and Chairman Mu was somewhat intriguing. Who is this Yun Shirshir? Why does Chairman Mu take care of her so much? An assistant director wondered. Take care of her? Is this taking care of her? Come on. I've changed the script of the kissing scene several times, and now it's going to be ruined by two body doubles. Lin Fengtian felt a headache coming on. Lin Fengtian's heart ached when he thought about how only two body doubles were needed for his meticulously revised script. He had high hopes for Yun Shirshir and felt that this newcomer had quite a lot of potential. Perhaps after this movie was released, she would become the next Han Yuyan. No, she would definitely surpass her. After 10 years of sharpening his sword, Lin Fengtian was full of confidence in this movie. It was a big production with a big budget, with the top film team in the country, coupled with Gu Xingzi's huge popularity. He was even looking forward to setting a record for the movie's box office. However, Mu Yaja had given him so many restrictions that his hands and feet were tied when he unleashed them. Lin Fengtian was a little angry. What could he do? What else could he do? Who was Mu Yaja? He was the crown prince of Disheng Financial Group. Everyone in Huanyu Entertainment had to follow his orders. What was the use of his protest? Thus, Lin Fengtian cursed Mu Yaja in his heart as he hurriedly went to look for a substitute. At noon, Qin invited Yun Shirshir to have lunch in a Chinese restaurant. During the banquet, he told her about this matter. Yun Shirshir was a little surprised when she heard this. Is this all Mu Yaja's request? In her heart, while she was surprised, she also felt an inexplicable sweetness towards Mu Yaja's dominance and possessiveness. Yes, Director Lin was so angry that he almost had a stroke. Qin said, Yun Shirshir didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You're exaggerating. Shirshir, let me ask you, what is your relationship with Chairman Mu? He seems to be very interested in you. Qin was a little gossipy. Mr. Qin, even you are so nosy? In this line of work, gossiping has become second nature. The two of them chatted for a while, and the waiter served the dishes one by one. She accidentally spilled tea on her skirt. The waiter immediately turned pale with fright and apologized profusely. Sorry. I didn't do it on purpose. Forget it. It's fine. Yun Shirshir waved her hand. Fortunately, she was wearing a black skirt today, so it was not a big deal. She raised her head to acknowledge Qin and got up to go to the bathroom to clean herself up. Wanru, you don't look well recently. Did you not rest well? Chapter 495. Mu Wanru elbowed him harshly and warned him coldly. I'm warning you, don't be too intimate with me outside, lest others see us. I know. Aaron took half a step back and reluctantly kept a distance from her. He leaned against the wall and quietly watched her back. Still, he felt satisfied. Wanru glared at him. She felt that provoking Aaron was her biggest mistake. This man was probably haunting her like a haunting ghost. She originally wanted to cut off all ties with him, but if she did so, she was afraid that he would reveal her secret. Hence, she unwillingly maintained their secret relationship. She would take it one step at a time. When the time was not right, she would get rid of him to prevent future trouble. Mu Wanru looked at the mirror again. Even with a thick layer of makeup covering her face, she could not hide her haggardness. These few days, she was distracted and did not rest well. Ever since that phone call, she had been having nightmares and could not sleep. She had a bad feeling about this. Thinking of this, Mu Wanru's face revealed a malevolent anger. These good-for-nothings. She really could not figure it out. How could they not even deal with a 6-year-old child? A child, only 6 years old, without the strength to even truss up a chicken, had actually failed the assassination. What was more frightening was that the assassin sent to carry out the mission was nowhere to be found. Initially, she was worried that her plan had been exposed, but after not hearing any news for a few days, she still felt uneasy. Now that she had failed this time, she could only come up with another plan. She was afraid that this failure would alert the enemy, and it would be difficult to strike again in the future. There was a reason why she was anxious to get rid of Yun Shirshir and Yun Tianyu. Grandpa Mu's health was deteriorating by the day, so he paid more attention to the matter of the Mu bloodline returning to the family. She had nothing to fear from Yun Tianyu. He was just a child with an immature mind. How much of a threat could he pose to her? She didn't care at all. However, the mother-son relationship between Yun Tianyu and Yun Shirshir was deep. If Yun Tianyu was acknowledged as a member of the Mu family, would Yun Shirshir not be entangled with the Mu family? If she were to be careless and expose her identity, she would be finished. She had to get rid of these 2 thorns in her flesh before Grandpa Mu did. Mu Wanru applied her lip gloss in front of the mirror and smoothed it out. Then, she put the lip pencil into her bag. Suddenly, her expression changed. She lay in front of the counter and retched in pain. Blurg, Alan's expression changed. He immediately stepped forward and held her arm. He asked nervously, "What's wrong?" "It's nothing." Mu Wanru pushed him away. Before she could finish her sentence, she retched again. He felt nauseous, but he couldn't vomit anything out. He just felt inexplicably nauseous. It was extremely uncomfortable. Seeing her push him away, Alan's heart sank. Seeing her retching again, he hesitated for a moment before stepping forward to hold her shoulders. This time, perhaps because she was a little unsteady, Mu Wanru did not push him away. Seeing her back arched for a while, Alan frowned. "Is it a stomach problem?" "Probably." Mu Wanru raised her head and looked at the mirror. Her expression was ugly. "I'll go buy medicine for you." Chapter 496. "It's okay." Mu Wanru leaned on him weakly and stroked her chest. "I'm much better now. It's probably because I didn't eat breakfast, so why don't you take care of your body at all?" Alan caressed her face with heartache. Mu Wanru clutched her chest and continued to retch inexplicably. Powerlessly, she raised her eyes and caught a glimpse of a standing figure reflected in the mirror. Her back suddenly stiffened, and her expression changed. Then she pushed Ellen away. Ellen was still a little late, but when he saw her turn around with a pale face and stare straight ahead, he was shocked and followed her gaze and turned around. He saw Yun Shirshir standing stiffly at the entrance of the washroom, her eyes darting back and forth between the 2 of them. Mu Wanru? Why was she with this man? She had wanted to go to the bathroom to clean up the water stains on her body, but just as she walked to the door, she saw Mu Wanru and Alan snuggling intimately together. From her angle, she could see Alan's hand on her waist. What shocked her even more was her retching just now due to morning sickness. Perhaps Mu Wanru was inexperienced and didn't know what that reaction meant. However, she had been pregnant for 10 months. When she was pregnant with Yu Yu and Xiao Yichen, Her early pregnancy reaction was very serious. Therefore, she could tell at a glance that Mu Wanru's symptoms were similar to those of early pregnancy. Was she pregnant? Yun Shirshir was shocked by her own suspicions and felt a chill in her heart. How was that possible? She clearly remembered that Mu Wanru was congenitally infertile. She couldn't get pregnant. Back then, because she couldn't get pregnant, the Mu family hired a surrogate mother at a sky-high price to preserve the family line. But what was Mu Wanru's reaction just now if it wasn't a symptom of morning sickness? Yun Shirshir glanced at her face and saw that her gaze was weak and her complexion was terrible. Her heart sank. Could she really be pregnant? Mu Wanru saw her strange expression and frowned. At the same time, she felt guilty. When she thought about how this cheap woman was constantly threatening her position, a twisted hatred grew in her heart. She sneered and said coldly, "Bastard, why do you keep staring at me?" Yun Shirshir ignored her hostile tone and said in a daze, "You two seem to be very close." A trace of panic flashed across Alan's face. He quickly took half a step back and immediately explained, "I just saw that young Madame Mu was not feeling well, so I went up to show my concern." Seeing him sizing up the situation, Mu Wanru felt her ears tingle when he called her young Madame Mu. She raised her head high and revealed a proper and elegant smile. So what if this bitch has the ability to seduce people? Now, she is the young mistress of the Mu family and Mu Yaja's fiancé. A woman like Yun Shirshir was just a casual toy Mu Yaja played with for a moment of interest. When he got tired of her, he would just throw her away. How could she not understand men? She would get rid of this thorn in her side sooner or later. It was just a fluke that she had escaped this time. Next time, she wouldn't be soft-hearted. Yun Shirshir faintly tugged at the corner of her lips and said, "Since you know that she is young Madame Mu, don't you think that your concern is a bit excessive?" Chapter 497. A hint of guilt flashed through Mu Wanru's eyes, but she quickly pretended to be calm. Then her gaze turned cold. She took a few steps forward and strode in front of her. She raised her hand high and slapped her face. Pa! Yun Shirshir couldn't dodge in time, and her face was slapped to the side. A red and swollen mark immediately appeared on his face. Yun Shirshir's gaze froze. She caressed her burning cheek and stared at her in surprise. "Bitch, what are you looking at? Do you know what excessive means? I think you're the reincarnation of a vixen. You look pure and harmless, but you're born cheap." Mu Wanru gritted her teeth as she spoke. The anger and hatred in her eyes seemed to want to grind her bones into ashes. Yun Shirshir was angered by her explicit and unrestrained words, and her eyes revealed a sullen expression. "What right do you have to call me cheap? You still dare to talk back?" Mu Wanru said, as she stretched out her hand to slap her again. Yun Shirshir, on the other hand, grabbed her wrist tightly and gave her a tight slap in return. Pa! Mu Wanru's slap caused her to lose her balance. She staggered back a few steps and almost fell. Alan quickly went forward and supported her body. He glared fiercely at Yun Shirshir. "What are you doing?" "She hit me first. This is for her." Yun Shirshir replied calmly, without a trace of fear on her face. Mu Wanru covered her red and swollen cheek. Her eyes were filled with tears of grievance as she glared at her. She really wanted to step forward and teach Yun Shirshir a lesson, but before she could take a step forward, her chest started to retch again. She tugged at her clothes and stopped in her tracks. Her eyes were fierce as she glared at Yun Shirshir. A cheap person is a cheap person. She was born cheap. Yun Shirshir was shocked when she heard this. There seemed to be a flash of white light in his mind. The scenes buried deep in her memory flashed before her eyes like a merry-go-round. in the fragmented memory fragments. A beautiful girl who looked like a proud little princess pushed her to the ground, pointed at her condescendingly, and mocked, B asterisk TCH will always be a B asterisk TCH, born to be a B asterisk TCH. Suddenly, he had a splitting headache. It was as if something was breaking out of her head. She rubbed her throbbing forehead as she looked coldly at Mu Wanru's malevolent and distorted face. Her thoughts were in a whirl. 15 years ago, as far as she could remember, she had never seen her father when she was young. Her impression of her mother was that she was as beautiful as poison, arrogant, and elegant. She also had a younger brother. For as long as she could remember, the three of them depended on each other for survival. Although they were a little tight on money, she felt that those were the happiest times of her life. When she returned home, she had her mother and her younger brother. She loved to snuggle with her younger brother on the bed. Her mother would open a fairy tale book for them by the bedside and read it word by word in a gentle voice. In such a voice, they would fall into sweet dreams. But even this peace was ruthlessly broken when she was 9 years old. A car accident had sent the broken family into hell. In that car accident, if it wasn't for her mother's protection, she wouldn't have survived. And if it wasn't for her mother protecting her, her mother and younger brother wouldn't have lost their lives. Chapter 498. Not long after she struggled to climb out of the car and drag her brother out, the car was completely destroyed. Due to her severe injuries, she fainted. When she regained consciousness, she had minor injuries all over her body, and her brother was nowhere to be found. Her mother was eventually declared dead. Just before the death notice was issued, she held her injured arm and watched helplessly as her mother was pushed into the cold morgue. She followed along stiffly without crying or shedding a single tear. She seemed to have forgotten what tears tasted like. Her mother did not have many friends when she was alive, and her funeral was taken care of by kind-hearted people in society. After all, she did not have any relatives, and they pitied her, so the funeral was hastily arranged. After that, she was hospitalized for a whole month. She could not even remember how she survived. She dreamed in the middle of the night, and her heart was cold and desolate. It was only on the day of her discharge that she understood in her heart. From then on, she knew that she would be left alone. Other than a jade pendant, her mother did not leave her anything else. She remembered that her mother used to wear this jade pendant close to her body and never left it. As for her background, her mother never mentioned a word about it. As for her grandfather and father, she kept her mouth shut. However, she still remembered that the place her mother mentioned was the Hua family, a place she hated all her life. The person she mentioned was called Mu Sheng, the person she hated the most in her life. He was a cruel executioner. The number of times he mentioned the Mu family could be counted with one hand. As for her father, he never mentioned it, as she did not have any relatives. After a series of procedures, she was sent to a private welfare home. That place became her lifelong nightmare. Perhaps that memory was too dark, and she did not want to remember it. It was as if she had selective amnesia, and her memory of that place was no longer clear. Until Mu Wanru said, B asterisk SD asterisk RD will always be a B asterisk ST asterisk roadborne to be a B asterisk ST asterisk RD. It made her recall that when she was young, there was once a girl who pointed at her and cursed her like this. When she first entered the welfare home, she was quickly assigned to her own dormitory. In the 20-square-meter room, 16 children were squeezed in. There were 8 beds and 2 floors. It was extremely crowded. There was a girl in the same dormitory with her. Everyone called her Xiao Ro. She was beautiful and generous. Like other children, she longed to be adopted by a rich family. She was different from other children. In his memory, She was always dressed up beautifully. She was beautiful and had many beautiful dresses. She always had a lot of candy and snacks. She was like a little princess who was doted on by thousands of people. She was the moon surrounded by stars, high and mighty. The director and teachers of the orphanage loved her very much. She even had a large group of fans among the children. She was like a little fairy. Everyone liked her and spoiled her. At that time, she still hadn't gotten over the pain of losing her mother. She was a little autistic and didn't like to talk, so other children didn't like to play with her. This girl was the first to talk to her. When she was lonely and helpless, she gave her a candy and said to her, "My name is Xiao Rou. What's your name? Let's be good friends." She thought that this girl was the little angel. She was kind and willing to help others. Chapter 499. She had always been grateful to this girl, until one day, when she walked into the washroom, she heard a rustling sound coming from one of the cubicles. Then, she heard a series of faint gasps, accompanied by the sound of struggling. Xiaorou's nervous and scared voice came through. "Dean, be gentle. Xiaorou hurts. Woo-woo. Xiaorou, be good. Xiaorou, don't shout. Don't let others hear you. Dean, can we not do that today? Xiaorou will help you with my mouth, okay? Okay, Xiaorou is so good. I'll buy you candy later." She was shocked when she heard the dean's tense voice. At that time, she was young and ignorant and didn't understand what was going on. She only knew that this was a girls' washroom and didn't understand why the dean would appear here. She walked closer to the cubicle with doubts. The door was locked from the inside, but through the small gap, she was surprised to see the dean standing upright with his back against the door. From her angle, the dean's pants were pulled down to his legs, and Xiaorou's clothes were half off as she knelt on the ground. Her head kept moving, but she couldn't see what they were doing. She moved closer, but her face accidentally bumped into the door, which alarmed the two people inside. Xiaorou was shocked. She raised her head guiltily and looked at the door with a pair of frightened eyes. Yun Shirshir couldn't dodge in time, and their eyes met. At that time, she was inexplicably flustered. Maybe it was because Xiaorou's eyes were too dark and scary, or maybe it was because the embarrassment and anger in Xiaorou's eyes had been discovered that scared her. She quickly ran back to her room. That night, when Xiaorou came back, she was reading a comic book on the bed. Pushing the door open, Xiaorou strode to her bedside and pulled her off the bed by her hair. Leaning against her ear, Xiaorou's voice was threatening and angry. "Did you see? What did you see?" She was frightened and shook her head, but she didn't understand why Xiaorou was so flustered. Xiaorou got up and kicked her. She stood up and accused the other children while crying, "She bullied me." "I didn't." Without waiting for her to explain herself, the other children rushed up angrily, punching and kicking her. Among the children, Xiaorou's words were like an imperial edict because she treated every child very well. She would give them snacks to eat and play with them. Among the children, her words were absolute. No child dared to disobey her. That night, she was sent to the infirmary with injuries all over her body. She didn't even understand what had happened, but somehow she had become everyone's public enemy. The next day, she realized that the jade pendant she had placed under her pillow was gone. She asked everywhere, but no one said that they had seen it. When she saw the jade pendant hanging around Xiaorou's neck, she immediately said excitedly, "That's my jade pendant." Xiaorou retorted, "What are you talking about? This is my jade pendant. My mother gave it to me. You're the one who stole my stuff. You thief." "I'm not a thief." In the face of everyone's doubts, her pale and weak explanation seemed a little hollow. "That jade pendant was originally mine. It's mine. I'm not a thief. I'm really not a thief." Chapter 500. Xiao Rou's harmless smile was very lovable, and it quickly aroused the anger of all the children. How could Princess Xiao Rou steal your things? You're the thief. You're clearly lying. You're lying. She was unable to defend herself and could only watch as her mother's relic was taken by someone else. Compared to the sweet-looking Xiao Rou, she was like Cinderella. No one was willing to believe her, and no one was willing to stand in her position. From then on, all the children treated her like snakes and scorpions, as if she was a vicious and bad child. Later on, one morning, Xiao Rou was called over by the teacher and never came back. According to the other children, Xiao Rou was adopted by a rich family. It was said that the family was very rich and gave the director a lot of benefits. They even helped to build a few projects in the Welfare Institute. The children said that the rich family came to the Welfare Institute to acknowledge their relatives. When they saw the jade pendant on Xiao Rou, they took her away. Xiao Rou never came back. The children were all amazed and envious. To be adopted by a good family was something that many children envied. Suddenly recovering from her thoughts, Yun Shirshir suddenly raised her head. Her eyes were red, and the expression on her face was angry and gloomy. Those dark memories instantly broke out of their cocoons. Those past events that she didn't want to look back on were all vivid in her mind. It was her. She was that child. She was the one who stole her jade pendant and framed her as a thief. It was her who caused her to be bullied, ostracized, and mocked by so many children. Yun Shirshir took a step closer to Mu Wanru and slowly stretched out her hand. Her voice was cold and firm. "Return the jade pendant to me." When Mu Wanru heard this, her heart trembled. She stared at her in disbelief. Her eyes flickered with bewilderment, and her face turned pale. Did she recognize him? How could it be? Her appearance was so different from when she was young. How could she recognize her? You're Xiao Rou, right? Yun Shirshir's lips curled up coldly. She opened her palm and stared straight at her. Her eyes were bloodshot, and she looked extremely miserable. "I don't know what you're talking about." Mu Wanru kept dodging his gaze as she retreated step by step, trying to defend herself with a pale face. "Now that things have come to this, how much longer are you going to pretend?" Yun Shirshir's eyes widened in indignation. Tears welled up in her eyes as her voice trembled. "That jade pendant! Return that jade pendant to me. That's the last thing my mother left me. Please give it back to me." "I don't know what you're talking about." Mu Wanru was forced into a corner by her. She let out a hysterical shriek as her face turned pale and blood drained from her face. Alan nervously held onto Mu Wanru's shoulder and looked at Yun Shirshir, who was walking towards her, with vigilance in her eyes. "What are you doing? Are you crazy?" Yun Shirshir bit her lips hard. She clenched her fists tightly, and tears flowed uncontrollably from her eyes. Those dark memories broke out of the cocoon and lingered in her mind, unable to be dispersed. The torment and bits of her time in the orphanage were like red-hot iron, leaving an indelible memory in her heart. Chapter 5:01. Screaming at the top of her lungs had almost exhausted all of her strength. Yun Shirshir staggered towards her, but her eyes were fixed on her. "It's time to return it to me. Give me back what you have taken from me. That jade pendant. Can you return it to me?" "Mu Wanru." "Ah, shut up. Stop talking." Mu Wanru was on the verge of breaking down as she covered her ears. "What nonsense are you spouting? I didn't steal anything from you. I didn't. You're slandering me. I'm not a thief. You're the thief. Stop talking, stop talking. You shut up. Otherwise, I'll tear your mouth apart." After shouting agitatedly, Mu Wanru's body swayed, and her eyelids twitched violently a few times. Her legs went soft, and she fainted in Alan's arms. Alan turned pale, With fright, he hugged her and called out a few times in a panic, "Wanru, what's wrong with you?" Seeing that she had fainted, Alan's heart ached. He carried her horizontally, raised his head abruptly, and fiercely glared at Yun Shirshir. "Are you satisfied now? Are you satisfied now? Vicious woman, are you going to force her to death before you stop?" After saying that, he carried Mu Wanru and strode out of the door. Yun Shirshir stood rooted to the ground in a daze. She laughed mockingly, but her heart could not stop chilling. Was she satisfied? Was she a vicious woman? How could this man be so ridiculous? How could this world be so ridiculous? Was Mu Wanru the victim? Was she a vicious woman? Mu Wanru was the thief. She stole the last thing her mother left for her, and even made her suffer thousands of curses, countless cold eyes, ridicule, and abuse. In the end, she was accused of being vicious. Didn't she think it was too ridiculous? Did Muyaja know? Does he know about this? Wasn't Mu Wanru recognized by the Mujia because of that jade pendant? Then, did he know that the real owner of this jade pendant was her? Was Mu Wanru pregnant? Her morning sickness was so obvious just now. She must be pregnant. Yes. Was it his child? It should be his child. Who else could it be? Mu Wanru was his fiancée. So what did he mean by those words he said to her earlier? Those words about announcing their relationship to the world were a joke to her, weren't they? Was she really that gullible? Did she really believe a simple promise? Did she really think that he would promise her the whole world? But in the end, his fiancée was pregnant. Wasn't Mu Wanru unable to get pregnant? Then what was this? The intense argument attracted the attendants to inquire about the situation. Yun Shirshir lost her balance and fell to the ground. Her trembling hands slowly covered her pale face. Her eyes were empty and hopeless. Chinjo heard the news and rushed over. Seeing her lying on the ground, he was shocked and immediately went forward. "Shirshir, what's wrong?" Yun Shirshir's eyes were wide open and her voice trembled. "Chinjo, I'm not a thief. Do you believe me?" Chinjo was confused by her sudden question, not knowing the cause and effect. He laughed dryly and said blankly, "Shirshir, what are you talking about? How can you be a thief?" "I'm not a thief." Chapter 5:02. But they're all saying that I'm the thief. Yun Shirshir covered her eyes and burst into tears. It was as if she had returned to the orphanage more than 10 years ago. She was surrounded by those children and listened to those cold fingers pointing at her. The memories that she had suppressed for more than 10 years suddenly broke through the cage. Those piercing voices of doubt, those malicious speculations, and those sinister accusations all lingered around her ears. Those vicious punches, kicks, and curses echoed over and over again. It was like a saw cutting back and forth in her heart, tormenting her over and over again. The noise in her ears caused her to break down. Yun Shirshir covered her ears hard, as if she was about to suffocate. She cried out loudly, "I'm not a thief. I'm really not a thief. Mu Wanru is the thief. She's the thief. She stole my things. That's my things." Chinjo raised his head and looked around, only to see that the waiters around him were also embarrassed. The polite smiles on their faces gradually became stiff, and they looked at each other. When they saw Chinjo's puzzled look, they all shook their heads. They had just arrived and didn't know what had happened. When she heard the commotion and rushed over, she was already in a daze and talking to herself like a puppet. Chinjo lowered his head again and looked at Yun Shirshir. Her eyes were tightly shut and her body couldn't stop trembling because of immense fear. She knelt on the ground and carefully curled up into a ball. Her shoulders couldn't stop shaking. Her helpless and desperate look made Chinjo's heart ache. He didn't know what had happened, but seeing her frightened and flustered look, he couldn't care less about arousing suspicion. He reached out his hands and hugged her shoulders, pulling her into his embrace. Gently placing his palm on her head, he stroked her hair over and over again. Lowering his head, he comforted her gently. Sure, I believe you. Don't be afraid. I'm here. Yun Shirshir clenched her teeth tightly. The auditory hallucinations in her ears almost destroyed her consciousness. After so many years, the mocking, insults, and accusations suddenly erupted as her memories awakened, tormenting her endlessly. Back then, if only one person had stood up, believed in her, and protected her, things wouldn't have turned out this way. She desperately wanted to forget those nightmarish scenes, but now that the memories were out of the cage, the grievances and panic that she had suppressed for many years once again collapsed like a mountain. Qin-Zhou saw that she was unable to recover from the setback. He gritted his teeth and helped her up, but her legs were weak. He had no choice but to carry her. Qin-Zhou drove back to his apartment with Yun Shirshir instead of going back to the company. After carrying her into the apartment, Qin-Zhou carried her to the bed and covered her with a blanket. Yun Shirshir lowered her head and burrowed under the blanket. Her body curled up into a ball, and she hugged herself tightly like a person who had no sense of security and was extremely helpless to protect herself. Qin-Zhou sighed, but there was nothing else he could do. He kept asking her questions along the way, but she kept curled up in the corner of the back seat with her head lowered. She didn't seem to hear a single one of his questions, and she didn't give him an answer. He had never seen a person lose control to such an extent. Chapter 503. Shirshir, no matter what, why don't you take a break first? If you don't want to talk about it, I won't ask, but as long as you're willing to talk, I'll be your most loyal listener. Yun Shirshir buried her face deep in her palms. Under Qin-Zhou's comforting words, the sharp and hysterical accusations slowly receded like a tide. Yun Shirshir slowly raised her head. Her eyes were exposed outside the quilt. Her line of sight overlapped and slowly regained clarity. She looked up at Qin-Zhou and gradually calmed down. Sleep first. Qin-Zhou saw that she finally opened her eyes and looked at him with a gratified smile. Yun Shirshir only nodded quietly, but still didn't say anything. Qin-Zhou tucked her in, got up, and walked out of the room. On the way, he closed the door for her. Yun Shirshir blinked and stared blankly at the ceiling. Gradually, she fell asleep. In the hospital, Mu Wanru lay unconscious on the bed in the consultation room. Alan sat at the desk and looked at the doctor's face from time to time. He nervously asked about the situation. "What's the situation?" The doctor pushed up the glasses on his face and calmly raised his head to glance at him. Then he continued to write and draw on the medical record card. Alan couldn't sit still and urged again, "Doctor, what's the situation with her?" "Who are you to her?" the doctor asked expressionlessly. Alan was stunned for a moment, but he said guiltily, "Just a friend." "Friend? I think you two are quite close. You don't look like friends." The doctor had some doubts in his eyes. Alan asked awkwardly, "Is that important?" "Of course it's important. If you're her family or boyfriend, I might have to congratulate you. But you said you're just her friend. I suggest you call her family and ask them to come to the hospital," the doctor said, and lowered his head to write on the medical record book again. Alan's face froze for a moment. He didn't understand the meaning of her words for a moment, but he was keenly aware that there was some mystery in her words, so he asked again, "Is she sick?" The doctor frowned. "You know her family? Call her family and ask them to do a test to see if she's pregnant." "Pregnant?" Ellen stared blankly for a long time, thinking that the doctor was joking with her. She couldn't help but doubt his professionalism. "Doctor, I'm sorry to interrupt. Are you sure she's pregnant? We still need to do further tests to confirm whether I'm pregnant or not." What's wrong? The doctor sneered. Sir, do you think I'm joking about such a serious matter? That's impossible. Alan hesitated for a while before saying slowly, she was found to be infertile. Because of this, her family even invited a doctor, but they all said that she was congenitally infertile. How is that possible? This girl's body is clearly very simple. What's the basis of those doctors saying that she's infertile? The doctor found it ridiculous. Since you don't believe me, take her to do an HCG examination. We'll get the results soon. It's useless for you to waste your breath on me. Alan frowned, but he hesitated for a long time without making up his mind. He also wanted to do an HCG examination for her to see what was going on. Chapter 504. What if she was really pregnant? Although this hospital was a private hospital, the Mu family would be able to find out if there were any medical records left in any medical center in the capital. What if she was really pregnant? In less than 2 days, the news would spread to the Mu family. He remembered that Mu Wanru and Mu Yaja had never had any physical contact. But now, there was news that she was pregnant. Mu Wanru had to kill him. Let's not bother about whether she was fertile or not for the time being. Even if she was really pregnant, the child in her stomach could not be saved. If the test was done and she was really pregnant, then to a wealthy family, a premarital pregnancy, and the child was not even Muyaja's was undoubtedly a huge scandal. Thinking about it carefully, it was not impossible for her to be pregnant. When he did it with her, it was probably because he knew that she was infertile. He was a little fearless, so he had never taken any safety measures. It was not impossible for her to be pregnant. Alan stood up and said, I'll make a decision after I inform her family. Today, I'll send her home first. The doctor looked up blankly and said, Oh. He felt that this man was really strange, but he did not think much about it. He only told him a few things to take note of and let him pay the registration fee. When Alan carried Mu Wanru to the car, Mu Wanru had already woken up. Seeing that she had woken up, Alan was nervous. You're awake. Where is this? Mu Wanru had a splitting headache. She rubbed between her eyebrows and looked out of the window. When she saw the hospital sign, she was stunned. Why are you in the hospital? You fainted just now. So, I was worried about you and sent you to the hospital. Alan was halfway through his words when he stopped abruptly and did not continue. He was still considering whether to tell her about this matter. Now that she was only pregnant, it was not confirmed if it was true. Mu Wanru did not know what he was thinking. She suddenly recalled what happened before she fainted, thinking of Yun Shirshir's horse accusations. Her heart stopped for a few seconds. She bit the tip of her thumb uneasily and panicked. Did she find out? Did she remember what happened before? How much did she know? Did she only remember that she had stolen her jade pendant? Or did she know what status this jade pendant represented? Damn it! Seeing her flustered expression, Alan recalled the doctor's words and finally decided to confess to her. Wanru, what is it? Speak. She was distraught, so her tone was unkind. Ellen hesitated for a few seconds before asking slowly, what exactly happened when you were found to be infertile? He suddenly brought up this topic. Mu Wanru was startled for a moment, and then she felt a dull pain in her heart. She said with an unhappy expression, Why are you suddenly asking this? Her inability to conceive had always been the most unforgettable thing in her heart. If she could have children, perhaps she would have married Muyaja long ago. It was because she couldn't get pregnant that her position in the Mu family was unstable. Since ancient times, rich and powerful families had always relied on their sons to rise in status. If he didn't have children by his side, he wouldn't have any status. It was precisely because of this that she was unable to bear a child for Muyaja. Naturally, her position would not be stable. Chapter 505. Mu Wanru's heart was filled with grievances and heartache. She clenched her teeth and said with tears in her eyes, "If it wasn't for my infertility, maybe I would have married him long ago." "What do you mean? Tell me clearly." Alan was anxious and asked again. Mu Wanru recalled and said, 6 years ago, he and I were about to get engaged, but he said that he had to do a routine physical examination before the engagement. But in the end, the doctor told me that I was born infertile and could not have children. Grandpa thought of many ways and invited many doctors to treat me, but they all said that I had no hope of getting pregnant in my life. How could it be? Alan frowned in surprise. One side said that there was no problem with Mu Wanru's body, and the other side brought in authoritative experts, who were sure that she could not get pregnant at all. The two sides contradicted each other, and it was really puzzling. Whether she was pregnant or not, the general doctor could diagnose what the problem was. Infertility, on the other hand, was a profound mystery. Which side was the problem? How would I know? Mu Wanru said with tears in her eyes. Those authoritative experts were all sent by Mu Yaja from authoritative medical centers all over the country, and they were all authoritative professors. They all said, "So what can I do? What can I do?" I wanted to try, but he didn't give me a chance at all. He didn't even touch me. "He really didn't touch you?" Alan asked doubtfully. "It's true. He really hates me." She laughed self-deprecatingly. "There was one time when he was a little drunk. I helped him to the bed. Originally, I wanted to, but he pushed me away. I even doubted that he was a normal man. Even if I stood naked in front of him, he didn't have any reaction. He didn't want to touch me at all. He hated touching me." She put her chin on her knees and murmured, "That's why I was so jealous of Yun Shirshir and hated her so much. If I could give birth to a son or a daughter for the Mu family, would it be her turn to compete with me?" A trace of suspicion appeared on Alan's face. He furrowed his brows, feeling that there was something fishy about this whole thing. Mu Wanru looked at him and said angrily, "What's with your expression?" "Wanru, if I told you that you might be pregnant, would you believe me?" Alan hesitated as he told her the things that were bothering him. From time to time, he would look at the changes in her expression. Mu Wanru was stunned for a long time, then suddenly sneered and said, "Have you had enough?" Alan was stunned. "I can't get pregnant at all, and I can't give birth. Is that enough? What do you mean by that? Do you want me to question the words of those authoritative experts?" Alan said, "But I just sent you to the hospital." And then she rolled her eyes disapprovingly. "The doctor said that you have some signs of pregnancy. He asked me to do an HCG test for you." Mu Wanru was stunned for a moment. In a daze, she mumbled, "How is that possible? It's impossible for me to get pregnant." "Wanru, think about it carefully. Are you sure you're infertile? You can't believe the words of those experts completely. No one knows your body better than you, right?" Chapter 506. Think about it again. We've done it so many times, but we've never taken any safety measures. Do you think it's a coincidence that you're showing signs of pregnancy at this time? Do you have any signs of early pregnancy in the past 2 days? I saw you retching a little before. Is that a symptom of morning sickness? Every word that he said was very convincing, and there was indeed some truth to it. Mu Wanru fell silent. Indeed, she and Alan had done it so many times. Perhaps it was because she knew that she was infertile and couldn't get pregnant, so Mu Wanru didn't take it to heart and didn't take any safety measures. Similarly, Alan didn't take any protection measures. But thinking about it carefully, there was indeed something wrong with the past few days. Every morning before breakfast, she would feel nauseous. At first, the symptoms weren't serious. She endured it and didn't think too much about it. Over the past few days, The dizziness and weakness had become more and more serious. She had no appetite and always felt inexplicably tired. She just blamed it on the nightmares and lack of sleep. Because of that incident, she had been feeling uneasy for the past few days. She had even neglected one thing. Her period had indeed been delayed for a long time and hadn't come for a long time. Her physical fitness was good. Every time her period came, it would come on time. At most, there would only be a deviation of 2 or 3 days. But now, it had been delayed for more than a week. This was already very abnormal for her. At first, she didn't realize it and only thought that it was normal for her to not sleep well. Now that she thought about it carefully, she couldn't help but be shocked. Mu Wanru's face suddenly turned ugly. She lowered her head in disbelief and covered her lower abdomen with her hands. Her palms were gently pressed against her abdomen, and her eyes were full of disbelief. She was pregnant? At the thought of this possibility, her heart was suddenly filled with mixed feelings. She didn't know whether to be happy or worried. What did this mean? Was he joking with her? Wasn't she born infertile? Those experts said with certainty that she would never be able to get pregnant or have children in her life. Then why did she have the reaction of early pregnancy now? Although she had no experience in pregnancy, after Alan's reminder, she did notice a series of strange reactions in her body over the past few days. It was very similar to the symptoms of pregnancy. Was she really pregnant? In other words, she wasn't infertile. She still had a chance to get pregnant and give birth to a child for the Mu family. When Mu Wanru thought of this, and thought that she might be able to have a child with Mu Yaja, a child that belonged to them, her own child, her heart was filled with great joy. She trembled as she covered her face. Her eyes were filled with tears of agitation, and her throat felt tight. Mu Wanru widened her eyes in surprise. She suddenly got up, slightly grabbed Ellen's collar, and said ecstatically, "You said I might be pregnant? In other words, I still have a chance to get pregnant." Ellen stared at her face, which was twisted and ferocious because of her surprise. For a moment, her heart was filled with great sorrow, joy, and worry. On one hand, his heart ached. His heart ached that she might finally be able to fulfill her dream of being a mother. Now, the child in her stomach was his. Vaguely, he felt a sense of responsibility as a father. Chapter 507. What was he? Had it been his wishful thinking all this while, or could it be that the woman he loved was just using him from the beginning to the end? Seeing his dazed expression, Mu Wanru's smile froze. She asked, "Alan, aren't you happy for me?" Alan raised his eyes and stared at her, but he didn't say a word. Mu Wanru held her abdomen as her lips curled into a radiant smile. "I can get pregnant. I'm not infertile. I can give birth to a child for Mu Yaja. This child might even be the future heir of the Mu group. Isn't this something to be happy about?" Wanru, Alan's eyes were a little obscure. He gently lowered his eyes and held her shoulders tightly. The corner of his lips curled up into a bitter arc. "First of all, I'm sincerely happy for you that you can get pregnant. Emma." Mu Wanru smiled. Her gaze was so soft that it seemed like water was about to drip out. Ellen's next sentence stunned her, as if she had been struck by lightning. "But haven't you thought about it? Whose child is the father of the child in your stomach?" "Wanru, that's our child, not yours, and Mu Yaja's." "Wanru, will you give birth to him?" Mu Wanru's body stiffened like a rock. She was stunned. Seeing her frozen expression, Alan's heart ached. A hint of sadness flashed across his eyes. He leaned over and sat beside Mu Wanru. He pulled her into his arms and said gently, "Wanru, you might be pregnant. If you're really pregnant, then this child is our child. I'm willing to acknowledge him and take responsibility for you. Deep down, I don't want to abort him. What about you? Are you willing to give birth to him? Mu Wanru's gaze changed. She clenched her fists subconsciously, and a cold glint flashed in her eyes. He wanted her to give birth to this child. How was that possible? Yes, how could she forget? She was pregnant, but whose child was the father of the child in her stomach? It wasn't Muyaja's, but Alan's. This was the product of infidelity, a vile spawn. How could she have given birth to him? If the Muyaja knew that she was pregnant, and the child was not his with Muyaja's methods, he would definitely wipe them out personally. By then, so what if Grandpa Mu dotes on her? In a wealthy family, it was taboo for a woman to be unfaithful to her husband. This was undoubtedly a huge scandal. If the Mu family knew about this, they would never let her off. Thinking of this, Mu Wanru's originally joyful expression receded like the tide and suddenly became as pale as a sheet of paper, her forehead oozing with fear and cold sweat. We can't keep this child. Why? Alan's eyes widened in shock. He pulled her body tightly and forced her to face him. He asked bitterly, "This child is your flesh and blood. It's your first child. How can you be so cruel? What can I do? What can I do?" Mu Wanru clutched his chest tightly and retorted with a pale face. "Keep him here? Keep this vile spawn? Alan, this is infidelity. This child is the product of infidelity. Don't forget, I'm Muyaja's fiancé, the future young mistress of the Mu family. I'm going to be young Madame Mu. How can I keep your child? Are you dreaming?" Chapter 508. What's incestuous? What's a vile spawn? That's your child. How can you be so heartless as to call him a vile spawn? Alan gripped her shoulders tightly, his eyes bloodshot and staring straight ahead. Mu Wanru was stunned for a moment. Suddenly, she sneered and asked, "Alan, don't tell me you're really in love with me?" Alan was stunned and looked at her in disbelief. Mu Wanru continued, "Don't tell me you're really in love with me? Alan, we're just fooling around. It's better if you don't get too involved. To you, I'm just a physical need." So, although she was a woman, sometimes she had physical needs too. Muyaja never touched her. As for Alan, she only had such thoughts at most. A man and a woman just took what they needed. Feelings? Who would talk about feelings with him? Enough. Alan could not take it anymore and interrupted her. "Mu Wanru, how can you be so cruel?" "Yes, I'm in love with you. Mu Wanru, I'm in love with you." Alan raised his eyes and stared deeply at her. He said word by word, "You've been lingering in my heart since university. I joined Dishing Financial Group because of you. Besides, don't you know whether I'm in love with you or not? You should know best. Also, you're using my feelings, but so what? I love you, so even if I have to sacrifice my life for you, I won't hesitate to do it." Mu Wanru was stunned. So, he could tell that she was using him? Was he an idiot? "Now, can you understand my sincerity?" Alan smiled sadly. "Wanru, I love you. When I first found out that you might be pregnant, I was so happy that I almost went crazy. If you're willing to keep our child, I can take you away. No matter where you are, I'll protect you and not let you suffer. I'll do my best to give you the happiest life. Are you willing to go far away with me?" Mu Wanru was stunned for a moment before she shook her head. "Are you kidding?" Alan's face fell into an ice cellar. "How can I keep this child? You're selfish. I won't go with you." Mu Wanru pushed him away harshly and raised her head arrogantly. She sneered. "I want to abort this child. From now on, let's break it off. Let's stop talking. I'll still be the young madam of the Mu family, and you'll be my fiancé's assistant. Let's stop talking. What? You know that you can get pregnant, so you're going to kick me away?" Ellen smiled miserably, but he saw through her ruthlessness and a bone-chilling chill arose in his heart. What do you mean by that? Mu Wanru glared at him fiercely. Shouldn't I be the one asking you this question? Alan's heart was filled with pain and disappointment. What's so good about being the young mistress of the Mu family? Can Muyaja give you happiness? Can he guarantee that you'll be the only one in his life? Stop dreaming. How do you know that he can't give me happiness? He'll be a good husband. He's different from you. He's a responsible man. He's the man that I, Mu Wanru, have taken a fancy to. Mu Wanru continued. As long as I let him know that I'm not infertile and can bear children for him, he won't be so cold to me. Chapter 5:09. You're the one who's dreaming. Alan said mercilessly. He only has Yun Shirshir in his heart. He doesn't touch you because he already has another woman in his heart. That's why he's not interested in you at all. Shut up, Mu Wanru interrupted him with a ferocious look. He's just playing with Yun Shirshir. He's a man after all. Don't I know him well? As for Yun Shirshir, he's only interested in her for a while. After this heat, his feelings for her will fade, so he'll just abandon her. Do you think that an unorthodox woman like Yun Shirshir can replace me? Alan smiled coldly and reminded her, Have you forgotten? Do I need to remind you? Who exactly is the young madam of the Mu family? Everything you have now was snatched from Yun Shirshir. Shut up, Mu Wanru shrieked and raised her hand to slap him. Slap! A ruthless slap landed on Alan's face. Alan did not stop there. If you hadn't snatched her jade pendant back then, old Master Mu would have brought her back to the Mu family by accident. The person by Mu Yaja's side now should be Yun Shirshir, not you. Mu Wanru, haven't you realized the truth until now? Mu Yaja doesn't belong to you. You can't force things that don't belong to you. Shut up, shut up, shut up. Mu Wanru covered her ears like a madwoman. When she saw that Alan did not intend to stop there, she raised her hand again, but Alan reached out and held it tightly. Wanru, even if you want to get rid of this child, tell me, how do you plan to hide it from the Mu family? How do you plan to get rid of this child without anyone knowing? Alan smiled, revealing his white teeth. Don't forget that the Mu family has spies in all the medical centers in the big capital. You should know how powerful the Mu family is, right? Or do you plan to go to a small clinic to get rid of it secretly? Mu Wanru was stunned for a while upon hearing this. How could she not know? All the medical centers in the capital were inextricably linked to the Mu family. Even if she escaped from the capital, it might not be too risky. Right now, only a small clinic could hide it from the public, Mu Wanru said, as long as I can get rid of this child. So what if it's a small clinic? Do you have the heart to degrade yourself? Alan was completely enraged. This is our child, a life. All right, then I'll stay. Mu Wanru paused. Before Aaron could reveal a gratified smile, she coldly said, as the Mu family's descendant. What do you mean? Alan asked in shock and anger. You're too naive. Whether or not it's his child, do you think you can hide it from him forever? Alan could not help but mock her naivety. This has nothing to do with you, Mu Wanru said coldly. Anyway, I can't go far away with you. Do you think everything will be fine if I just leave with you? Do you think the Mu family will let us go? Who's the naive one here? Chapter 5:10. That's enough. I don't want to hear your nonsense. You'd better keep your mouth shut about this matter before I come up with a compromise. I don't want anyone to know that I'm pregnant. We're still in the same boat now, so don't you dare play any tricks. Aaron smiled bitterly, but did not say anything in the end. He got into the car expressionlessly. Mu Wanru sat in the car. Along the way, she lowered her head to look at her flat stomach. A complicated look flashed across her eyes. The Bentley slowly drove into the car park of Leji Holdings. Lee Hanlon alighted from the car, walked to the back seat, and opened the door. Yun Tianyu alighted from the car, and Lee Hanlon bent down slightly to carry him. He raised his head to look at the tall building in the center of Leji Holdings and asked in a low voice, "Have you investigated that woman's matter?" "Yes, I have. Let's go in." Lee Hanlon nodded and carried Yun Tianyu into Leji Holdings. Along the way, the employees threw them surprised looks from time to time. A passing secretary saw Lee Hanlon carrying a delicate-looking little lad and was surprised to see him. She asked in surprise, "Agent Lee, you're here." "Ah, this child is so adorable. Who is he to you?" Yun Tianyu frowned unhappily and said lightly, "You still have the mood to chat during work hours?" Lee Hanlon immediately reprimanded, "Get back to work. Don't talk so much." Startled, the secretary quickly lowered her head and returned to her seat. He was a little surprised in his heart. This cute and immature child still had the air of a baby. Why was the moment he opened his mouth so imposing? He was so mature that he did not seem like a child at all. Lee Hanlon carried Yu into the office and placed him on the office chair. Yun Tianyu leaned back gracefully and leisurely looked at the furnishings in the office. In a sense, this was the first time he stepped into Leji Holdings headquarters since he held 60% of the company's shares. Lee Hanlon brewed a cup of Ceylon black tea for him and then passed a thick stack of documents to him. "Is everything here?" "Yes, everything is here." Yun Tianyu took a sip of the black tea and then lowered his head to carefully read the information. He skimmed through it 10 lines at a glance. Suddenly, his brows slowly furrowed. According to the information, Mu Wanru's biological mother was a masseuse in a bar. She had a low status, and after giving birth to Mu Wanru, she abandoned her at the entrance of the hospital. After that, she was picked up by a couple. Until a car accident, she lost both her parents and was sent to the orphanage. When she was 9 years old, she was adopted by the Mu family and brought back. The information about the private welfare institute was also listed out in detail. Yun Tianyu flipped through a few pages, and his eyes suddenly widened in shock. Lee Hanlon saw that his face was a little ugly, and his eyes fell on the information. According to the information, the director of the orphanage was sentenced to prison for child molestation 3 years ago. The list of victims included dozens of orphans in the orphanage, including young boys. The director of the orphanage was called Luo Hanjin, 50 years old. This incident had once caused a huge uproar in the city, and everyone knew about it. Most of the victims were young orphans who were still ignorant. The youngest among them was only 6 years old. Chapter 511. The police took this case very seriously and immediately launched an investigation after receiving the girl's confession. After a thorough investigation, Luo Hanjin was arrested. After his arrest, he denied all charges of child molestation, which led to strong protests from charity organizations. In the end, the charity organizations intervened, and all the children in the orphanage were examined. The results showed that dozens of children had varying degrees of bruises on their bodies, and a few of them were infected with STDs. Finally, with conclusive evidence, Luo Hanjin was prosecuted and confessed to child molestation. At first, he tried to use his connections to suppress the matter, but unfortunately, this matter caused a strong social reaction and caused public outrage. Due to the serious nature of the case, which involved the rape of a child, the court sentenced him to life imprisonment. "What a beast!" Lee Hanlon shook his head. Yun Tianyu frowned slightly. "I remember that Mommy was adopted by Yun Yeching from this orphanage." Hearing this, Lee Hanlon's face turned solemn. "Director Yun, are you worried that Yun Tianyu clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles turned white. His face was extremely ugly. I want to see him, Li Hanlin said. Luo Hanjin should still be serving his sentence in prison, but if you want to see him, I can arrange it. Arrange it immediately. Okay. Li Hanlin took out his phone and walked to the side. Yun Tianyu continued reading with a serious expression. At the end of the information was a list and photos of all the orphans adopted since the orphanage's opening. His eyes swept through the information and landed on one of the photos. In the photo, a beautiful girl with delicate features was looking expressionlessly at the camera. Her face was expressionless, and her eyes were empty and numb, as if there was a pool of dead water between her brows. Her jet black hair set off her extremely thin cheeks. She seemed to be suffering from long-term nutritional imbalance. Her face was pale and dull. Her clothes looked very shabby and shabby. Was this mommy when she was young? How could she be so thin? Yun Tianyu frowned with heartache. His slender fingers slowly caressed the photo, and his heart ached as if it were being pricked by needles. Mommy. Li Hanlin hung up the phone and walked over, only to see Yun Tianyu staring at a photo in a daze. Following his line of sight, Li Hanlin saw a photo of Yun Shishir taken at the welfare center when she was 9 years old and suddenly recalled something. When I went to the orphanage today, I learned some news. Speak. The staff at the orphanage mentioned that 15 years ago, a girl was ostracized by the teachers and children at the orphanage because of stealing. She even contracted depression because of that. Depression? Yes, because of her depression. She once tried to go on a hunger strike. Later, she was sent to the hospital and received treatment for half a year. Because of this, when the girl was adopted, the family that adopted her donated a considerable amount of money to the Welfare Institute. This is the girl. His eyes turned cold as he slowly raised his head. Depression? Suicide? It's that serious. Yes, it's serious. Li Hanlin lowered his head and looked at the photo again. Suddenly, he felt that it looked familiar. Chapter 5:12. Thief. Thief. Shameless thief. It's all because of you that Xiao left in a fit of anger. Why are you such a lowly thief? I'm not a thief. I'm really not a thief. In her sleep, Yun Shishir clutched the blanket tightly as sweat broke out on her forehead. The lights in the room suddenly turned on. Qin Zhou pushed the door open and walked in. He had knocked on the door for a long time, but no one answered. He was worried about her, so he entered the room. At this moment, the sky outside the window had darkened. The night breeze blew in through the window, causing the curtains to flutter. He immediately walked over and closed the window. The slight movement woke up the person who was sleeping on the bed with a start. Yun Shishir opened her eyes. In her hazy vision, there was a ceiling. Then she saw Qin Zhou's smiling, handsome face. Darling, you're awake? Yun Shishir felt a slight headache. She fell asleep in a daze, but the nightmares kept on waking her up. She slowly sat up on the bed. Qin Zhou immediately picked up a cushion and placed it behind her back. When he touched her shoulder, his fingertips were scalded by her skin. His expression was slightly startled as he immediately placed his hand on her forehead and said in surprise, "You have a slight fever." Yun Shishir opened her eyes in a daze. She was not fully awake yet, so her reaction was a little slow. Qin Zhou sighed and immediately rummaged through the cupboard to get the medicine box. He sat by her bed and took out a thermometer for her to put in her mouth. Yun Shishir did as she was told. A minute later, Qin Zhou took out the thermometer and looked at it. It was 38 degrees. She had a fever. I guess the windows were open when you fell asleep. The apartment is like this. At night, the wind is especially cold. I'm afraid you've caught a cold. It's all my fault. Chinjo was annoyed. He poured some warm water and urged her to take the medicine. Thank you. Why are you being so polite? Chinjo joked. Sure, you're lucky. Where else can you find such a gentle manager, like me? Yun Sure was amused by his narcissistic tone. Yes. I'm lucky to have a manager like you to take care of me. I must have done a lot of good deeds in my previous life. Of course. Chinjo felt a little smug from her praise, and the two of them jokingly chatted for a while. Chinjo suddenly smiled and asked, Have you calmed down now? Yun Sure nodded slowly. Then tell me what exactly happened at noon. Chinjo's usual frivolous face was gone. It was rare for him to care about someone so seriously. Yun Sure was silent for a long time. Her gaze suddenly drifted away along with her thoughts. However, Chinjo was very patient and did not disturb her. After a long time, Yun Sure slowly said, These are all things of the past. I don't know if I should tell you. She had originally chosen to forget those memories, but today, after the argument with Mu Wanru, those unbearable memories seemed to have broken out of their cage. If you're willing to tell me, then I'm willing to listen. If you're not willing, then I won't force you. However, I want you to know that even though I'm your manager in name, in my heart, I treat you like family. In the future, we'll be in the same boat and share weal and woe. So, you don't have to treat me like an outsider. Chinjo's expression was serious, and his words were sincere. Yun Sure nodded and told him about the grievances between her and Mu Wanru. Chapter 5:13. Does this mean that Mu Wanru is the girl who stole your jade pendant 15 years ago? Chinjo questioned. Yun Sure nodded, her eyes dark. I heard that Mu Wanru was adopted by the Mu family 15 years ago. It's said that Grandpa Mu had an adopted daughter, whom he doted on very much. Her name is Mu Qingcheng. Although she's not of the Mu family's blood, Grandpa Mu treated her as his own and treated her as the apple of his eye. However, more than 20 years ago, Mu Qingcheng got pregnant out of wedlock. To cover up this scandal, Grandpa Mu ordered her to abort the child. Later, Mu Qingcheng went missing. In order to find his beloved adopted daughter, Grandpa Mu turned the entire capital upside down, but he still could not find her. Even so, there was still a clue, and he did not give up. Later, I heard that. Chinjo's voice suddenly sank. Mu Qingcheng was found, but she's dead. Yun Sure's heart skipped a beat. Dead? Yes. She died in a car accident. It was too horrible to look at. Chinjo shook his head, helplessly. Grandpa Mu was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. Later, he started looking for Mu Qingcheng's 2 children. Mu Qingcheng, Yun Sure said in a daze. I only know that my mother's surname is Qin, and her name is Cheng. Didn't your mother mention your family background to you? He asked in confusion. No. Yun Sure shook her head. My mother has been very tight-lipped about my family background. She only told me that there's a Mu family in the capital, and that there's someone called Mu Sheng, who's the cruelest executioner in the world. She told me not to step into their house, no matter what. Mu Sheng? Chinjo suddenly stood up agitatedly and said solemnly, There's only one Mu family in the capital, and the head of that family is Mu Sheng. Don't tell me that your mother is Mu Qingcheng. Yun Sure suddenly fell silent. Chinjo continued, Could it be that Mu Wanru stole your jade pendant, and that jade pendant is your mother's personal keepsake? Grandpa Mu recognized the keepsake and took Mu Wanru back to the Mu family as your mother's child? Probably, yes. So, you're the real daughter of the Mu family? Mu Yaja's real fiancé. Chinjo raised his eyebrows slightly, feeling that life was truly a fantasy. All this time, the real daughter of the Mu family had been a fake. However, the real princess ended up in the human world by accident. This was too dramatic. It could be made into a TV series. I won't go back to the Mu family. I just want her to return the jade pendant to its rightful owner. Yun Shirshir looked up and said, "That was the last thing my mother left me. Because of that woman's selfishness, I was at the mercy of others in the orphanage. The orphanage you're talking about, I think I have some impression of it." Qin Zhou carefully recalled and suddenly slapped his forehead. "Is the director of that orphanage called Luo Hanjin?" Yun Shirshir's face froze when she heard that. Her face turned as white as a sheet in an instant. She never knew the name of the director of the orphanage, but in her heart, that man was undoubtedly a devil, a terrifying demon who should go to hell. Chapter 5:14. Wasn't Luo Hanjin exposed in a scandal a few years ago? He was accused of molesting children and raping young girls. It was a big deal, and many children in the orphanage were found to have been violated to different degrees. That orphanage was privately owned. It claimed to be a social orphanage, but in private, it secretly sold those beautiful young girls to rich people to raise skinny horses. What do you mean? Yun Shirshir came back to her senses and was a little puzzled by his words. Raise skinny horses? What did that mean? Qin Zhou's expression changed. Don't you know what it means to raise skinny horses? I don't quite understand. Skinny horses? It has nothing to do with horses. I think it's not that you don't quite understand. You don't understand at all. Ha ha, innocent girl. Qin Zhou's lips curled up and he smiled. Have you heard of Yangzhou's skinny horses? Yun Shirshir shook her head in confusion. Qin Zhou explained to her, in the entertainment industry now, many popular groups may look glamorous on the surface, but in fact, they have rich people behind them. For example, the popular Sweet Girls is actually a skinny horse raised by a record company. Many rich people like to raise skinny horses, and this is a popular trend in high society. What does it mean to raise skinny horses? Yun Shirshir was a little confused. It starts from ancient times. In the Jiangnan area, there were many young girls who were specially trained to be married to rich people as concubines. Most of these girls were beautiful because they were thin, so they were called skinny horses. In the Ming and Qing dynasties, skinny horses had become a lucrative investment, and a large number of people engaged in this business. Qin Zhou paused, glanced at Yun Shirshir, and continued to explain. These people specially selected young girls from poor families from all over the country. These young girls were like goods that were picked and selected. Those who were good-looking, cultivated talents were proficient in the 4 books and 5 classics, and were good at everything. In the end, they were sold to rich people at high prices as concubines. But not all skinny horses were lucky enough to marry rich people. In the end, the remaining skinny horses were sent to the brothels. Most of the prostitutes by the Qinhuai River were skinny horses. When Yun Shirshir heard this, she was skeptical. There was actually such a thing. Seeing the look of disbelief on her face, Qin Zhou smiled and said that private orphanage used the name of the orphanage to adopt those orphans. They secretly picked out those who looked delicate and pretty, and some of them were given to rich families. These girls were all clearly priced. Yun Shirshir frowned. It turned out that there was so much darkness in the world that she didn't know about. His heart was filled with terror. Her dark childhood in the welfare home had taught her about Luo Hanjin's despicable and shameless ways. However, Yun Yeching's appearance had brought her away from this abyss of suffering. For this, she was truly grateful to him. If not for Yun Yeching, she really did not know what would have happened to her. While she was lost in her thoughts, Qin Zhou had already brought the cooked porridge over. After setting up the table on the bed for her, he placed the porridge and side dishes in front of her and said with a smile, "You must be hungry. Hee hee. Come and try the porridge that Lord Qin specially cooked for you. Let's see how good it is. Yun Shirshir asked in surprise. You cooked it for me? What else could it be? I saw that you didn't eat lunch and slept the whole afternoon. You should be hungry when you wake up. Chapter 5:15. You should be thanking me. He crossed his arms. Look, I'm not just your manager. I'm also your nanny. I've never been so considerate to anyone before. He sat by the bed and suddenly said seriously, Sure, some things are in the past, so don't dwell on them. When there's pain, you should let go of it and not hold on to it. I've always believed in karma. This person, without saying a word, without doing anything, it was all part of his karma. If one sows good karma, one will bear good karma. Sows evil, reap evil. That Mu Wanru has evil intentions. She'll suffer the consequences sooner or later. Yun Shirshir thought that his words made sense. Qinzhou, do you believe in Buddhism? I don't believe in Buddhism, but I believe in karma. He propped his chin with one hand and said, Good and evil will be repaid. Every dog has its day. Some people do evil, and no matter how late the retribution is, it will eventually befall them. On the long corridor in the prison, the sound of chains dragging on the floor was ear-piercing. A middle-aged man with white hair was walking slowly. The prison guard mercilessly kicked him. Walk faster. The prison door slowly opened. In the interrogation room, Yun Tianyu sat on a chair, with Li Hanlin standing beside him. When the man was dragged into the interrogation room by the prison guard, he saw a delicate-looking little lad sitting on a chair like an elegant and cute little gentleman. However, the expression on the child's handsome and tender face was extremely cold. Luo Hanjin was pushed to the interrogation chair, with his hands cuffed. Li Hanlin exchanged glances with the prison guard. The latter immediately understood and left respectfully. He felt extremely strange. After serving his sentence for so many years, he was summoned today for no reason to meet a 7-year-old child. Was he seeing a ghost? He looked warily at Li Hanlin, who was beside Yun Tianyu, and asked, Who are you? Li Hanlin looked at him expressionlessly and did not speak. The little lad beside him casually said, You don't need to know who we are. Luo Hanjin, I'm here to ask you a few things, and you'd better answer me honestly. If you hide anything from me, don't blame me for being rude. Who are you? You're just a little kid, and you're talking big? Luo Hanjin's face showed a displeased look. Obviously, he didn't put this kid in his eyes. He had once been in the limelight. Even though he was now at the end of his rope, the limelight had passed, and his sentence had been reduced again and again. His original life sentence had been reduced to 10 years, and it was only a matter of time before he would be released. Hence, he did not think much of Yun Tianyu. His rude words made Li Hanlin extremely unhappy as he coldly rebuked, Luo Hanjin, don't think that everything is fine just because you're about to be released from prison. Do you believe that I will let you stay in prison for a few more years? Ha ha, you still haven't told me who you are. You think I'm a pushover? Why would any Tom, Dick, or Harry come here to show off? Luo Hanjin smiled disdainfully. His face was sloppy and uncooperative. Yun Tianyu smiled sinisterly, his beautiful eyes brimming with coldness. It seems that you won't know the immensity of heaven and earth if I don't teach you a lesson. What do you mean? Luo Hanjin stared at him suspiciously, only to see Li Hanlin walk to the door and clap his hands. After a while, 2 prison guards walked in with batons in their hands. Chapter 5:16. Luo Hanjin stared at him suspiciously, only to see Li Hanlin walk to the door and clap his hands. After a while, 2 prison guards walked in with batons in their hands. A baton hit his head, causing him to feel dizzy from the pain. Li Hanlin ordered, The prisoner is not cooperating. Do something. What do you mean? What are you trying to do? Luo Hanjin screamed, but the chair was suddenly turned upside down. Immediately after, the prison guard covered his face with a towel and slowly poured a bucket of water over him. Whoa, waterboarding was one of the cruelest forms of torture. As the towel gradually became soaked, water continuously flowed in. Due to the suction force of the towel, Luo Hanjin's nose, mouth, and teeth were all firmly stuck, making it impossible for him to breathe. Suffocation overwhelmed him like a mountain. He struggled violently, but his hands and feet were cuffed, so he could not move at all. The sound of the chains clanging against each other was crisp and clear. Yun Tianyu leisurely picked up his teacup, took a sip, and raised his head to signal the prison guard. Li Hanlin immediately waved his hand, and the prison guard hurriedly took the towel away. Luo Hanjin's eyes widened in anger as he breathed in the fresh air rapidly. His expression was twisted and hideous, as if he had just come back from the dead. Are you awake now? Yun Tianyu put down his teacup and asked. The prison guard hit him on the shoulder with a baton. Are you awake now? I'm asking you a question. I'm awake now, Luo Hanjin asked in horror. Brother, who are these two? Who's your brother? The prison guard angrily slapped him. Just tell us what we're asking you. Be honest, or else you'll have to bear the consequences. Yes, I understand. Luo Hanjin obediently nodded his head and looked at Yun Tianyu with a look of awe and respect. You'd better know your place. After saying that, the prison guard turned to look at Li Hanlin obsequiously. With a look from the latter, they obediently retreated. Wouldn't you have suffered less if you had been obedient earlier? You should know what crime you committed, right? Yun Tianyu asked unhurriedly before continuing. You should know what crime you committed, right? I know. Perhaps Luo Hanjin had suffered a lot in prison, so he had learned to be obedient when the prison guard came forward towards this child in front of him, although he felt that it was somewhat inconceivable for a child to have such a strong and evil aura, but from the bottom of his heart, he was in awe. I'm here to ask you about the two of you. Tell me everything you know. As Yun Tianyu spoke, he took out 2 photos and had Li Hanlin present them to him. Luo Hanjin glanced at the photo, still in shock. There were 2 girls in the photo, but when he looked at one of them, he suddenly remembered. Xiao Ro. Luo Hanjin looked up at Li Hanlin in confusion. What's wrong with her? Do you still remember who adopted her? I remember. The Mu family in the capital. It was old Master Mu who personally came to take them away. Luo Hanjin answered. Why did Grandpa Mu adopt her? That's because she seems to have a jade pendant on her, like a personal keepsake. Grandpa Mu also has an identical jade pendant on him. When the 2 pieces of jade are put together, they are a pair. Luo Hanjin recalled for a while. I remember Grandpa Mu saying that this girl is his long-lost relative. You're sure just from a piece of jade? Li Hanlin was skeptical. Chapter 5:17. Jade pendant. Yun Tianyu's gaze deepened. Yes, that jade pendant, when pieced together, forms a jade pendant. I heard that it's an heirloom of the Mu family passed down from generation to generation. That was all he knew. Yun Tianyu was deep in thought. His fingertips tapped on the table absent-mindedly, as if he were plotting something. Speaking of this jade pendant, I thought of something. Go ahead. At that time, many teachers at the orphanage said that this jade pendant was not hers and was taken from another child. It's not hers? Li Hanlin was surprised. Yes, the orphanage has a record of the children it takes in, and some of their personal belongings are also registered. Ruru is an orphan, so she didn't have this jade pendant with her when she entered the orphanage. The nurses and teachers of the orphanage were well aware of this. I only found out about it later, Luo Hanjin said. That means that the Mu family mistook her for someone else? Luo Hanjin nodded resentfully. You can say that. Yun Tianyu raised his eyes and said faintly, that is to say, this girl stole someone else's jade pendant, replaced that child's identity, and was adopted by the Mu family? Yes, that's all I know. He did not know why, but whenever Yun Tianyu opened his mouth, his heart would tremble. This child was still so young. His aura was so strong that it was frightening. Even a casual and emotionless sentence made him feel fear from the bottom of his heart. Since you knew, why didn't you say anything? I didn't know about it at that time, either. Luo Hanjin hurriedly explained, Ruru, this girl is very doted on in the orphanage. The teachers and children all like her. Even if she really stole this jade pendant, no one would believe it, right? The teachers are also protective of her, so they definitely won't expose her. Is this child also your pet? Lee Hamlin was suddenly curious. I heard that you have this kind of fetish. It's very unique. This. Luo Hanjin smiled sheepishly, but did not answer. He did not know what to say. He had played with this child named Ruru before. She was different from other children. The first time he played with her, she was obviously resistant, but later on, he took special care of her. She was considered to be enlightened and tasted the sweetness of it. Later on, when that kind of thing happened again, it was all up to him. Have you played before? Lee Hamlin was an adult, so he asked him in an adult tone. Luo Hanjin pondered for a moment before nodding his head resentfully. Yes, tisk, tisk. Lee Hamlin was truly disgusted. You won't even spare a little girl. Luo Hanjin's face became even hotter. What are you guys talking about? He frowned. Nothing. Lee Hamlin broke out in a cold sweat. She could not tell you about this. It was not suitable for children. Not suitable for children. There's another girl. Do you know her? Lee Hamlin pointed at the other photo. Luo Hanjin looked at it carefully, and after thinking hard for a while, he nodded in a daze. Yes, I have some impression of him, but I can't remember him clearly. Don't have a deep memory? Yun Tianyu frowned, somewhat displeased with his ambiguous answer. Lee Hamlin grabbed his hair and pressed his head in front of the photo. Look carefully. Chapter 518. Luo Hanjin stared at the photo for a while longer. His memory returned, and he slowly said, I seem to remember now. Xiao Rose Jade pendant seems to have been taken from this child. Taken? As stole. He corrected his choice of words. Yun Tianyu's heart skipped a beat, and his expression changed slightly. In other words, that jade pendant originally belonged to her. I don't think so. When this child first entered the orphanage, other than a jade pendant, she also had a bracelet. They were all expensive items, but her clothes were tattered. I have a deep impression of this. Yun Tianyu's gaze changed. The reason why Mu Wanru wanted to kill Yun Shishir was because of her parentage. The killer's confession before his death still rang in his ears. Yun Tianyu furrowed his brows as he pieced all the clues together. It seemed that the whole situation was gradually becoming clearer. Lee Hamlin also sorted out his thoughts. Mu Wanru and Yun Shishir were orphans from the same orphanage. This jade pendant was originally Yun Shishir's personal keepsake. Mu Wanru stole it, and Grandpa Mu adopted her by accident. Therefore, Mu Wanru had replaced Yun Shishir's identity today. Everything she had now should belong to Yun Shishir. Therefore, Yun Shishir's appearance made Mu Wanru wary, so she used all means to get rid of this thorn in her flesh. Mu Yaja's original fiancé was supposed to be Yun Shishir. Therefore, Mu Wanru's motive for killing her was to silence her. I heard that you were sent here for some crime, so don't try to hide anything from me. Lee Hanlon patted his face and asked, "Did you do anything heartless to this girl?" "No." Luo Hanjin immediately shook his head. "I really didn't." "You didn't?" Lee Hanlon shouted. Luo Hanjin was so scared that he almost wet his pants. "I swear to God, I really didn't. This girl was a little autistic. She didn't like to talk and didn't get close to anyone. I did take liberties with her, but I didn't do anything like that. Get physical with her." Yun Tianyo's eyes turned cold, and his handsome face turned gloomy and hostile. His sharp eyes made Luo Hanjin break out in cold sweat. He immediately begged for mercy. "I really didn't do anything else." "What do you mean by groping? Speak clearly," Lee Hanlon scolded. Luo Hanjin nodded repeatedly and confessed in full detail. At first, when Yun Shirshir was adopted by the orphanage, Luo Hanjin saw that she was sweet and pretty, so he passed her photo to several bosses in the upper-class circle. Just like what Qinzhou had said, the children in Luo Hanjin's orphanage had adopted good-looking girls as thin horses and sold them at a high price to those rich and powerful local bosses in the name of adoption. Many bosses preferred this kind of nourishment. Yun Shirshir's looks were more in line with those bosses' aesthetic standards. Many bosses were very interested in this girl, so Luo Hanjin wanted to nurture her talents so that he could sell her at a high price. Alas, Yun Shirshir had autistic tendencies when she was young. After the car accident, she suffered the pain of losing her mother. After entering the orphanage, she became depressed and soon lost weight. She did not like to talk and was not well liked. She was like a soulless puppet. Chapter 519. Those bosses did not like autistic children. Without a market, Luo Hanjin was a little aggrieved, so he beat her up to vent his anger. It was not that he did not harbor any ill intentions toward her. He had tried to get physical with her, but she resisted so fiercely that he gave up on the idea. Later, the Yun family adopted her and donated a sky-high amount of money to the orphanage. I swear, I really didn't do anything to her. The so-called groping was only touching her hand. Luo Hanjin was so frightened that he broke out in a cold sweat. Lee Hanlon's eyes were filled with disgust when he heard this. He turned to look at Yun Tianyu, only to see the latter's gloomy face. Touched her hand. Yun Tianyu's face darkened, and his lips curled up slightly. "Your hand is really dirty." Luo Hanjin nodded his head repeatedly. "Yes, dirty. He. If you say it's dirty, then it's dirty." "Since you think it's dirty, too, then what should I do?" Yun Tianyu gracefully propped his chin on one hand and tapped his finger on the table. "Cripple it yourself." Lee Hanlon threw a small knife to Luo Hanjin. "Do it." What do you mean?" "Cripple whichever hand you touched her with," ordered Yun Tianyu coldly. Luo Hanjin was stunned. Was this child joking with him? How could he say such cruel and merciless words in such a casual manner? Was he really a 6-year-old child? Are you kidding me? Sometimes the rules of this world are really interesting. You left those children with nightmares and pain that they can't erase for the rest of their lives. Now, you're serving your sentence in prison. Do you really think that prison can erase your sins? Yun Tianyu slowly got up and walked up to him. His eyes were filled with disgust. What did you ask me? I've answered all your questions honestly. What else do you want me to do? What do I want? I want to dig out your heart and see if it's black or not. Yun Tianyu said blandly. It's just that I find it dirty. Luo Hanjin trembled with fear and broke out in a cold sweat. He did not doubt that this child would dare to do so, and was not just trying to scare him. Why did you? He suddenly realized something and lowered his head to look at the girl's delicate face in the photo. His face stiffened, and he mechanically raised his head to look at Yun Tianyu's face in horror. Their facial features were similar, especially between their eyebrows. They were extremely similar. Who is she to you? Do it yourself, lest you dirty my hands. Yun Tianyu nonchalantly replied, if I were to make a move, it wouldn't be as simple as just crippling your hand. Luo Hanjin was startled. Looking at Yun Tianyu's pair of gloomy and chilling eyes, he fell into great fear and trembled. He had never believed in retribution. Even though the truth had been exposed and he had been sent to prison, he had seen his sentence reduced over the past few years through various means. He was even more convinced that the retribution was just a joke. But retribution would really come. And now it was here. He could tell that this child was not a simple character. Luo Hanjin's entire body trembled as he fell into extreme despair. Li Hanlin asked kindly, do you need my help? Chapter 5:20. Ah! A blood-curdling scream echoed in the interrogation room. Continue. I was wrong. I was wrong. Amid the excruciating pain, Luo Hanjin gritted his teeth and stabbed a second time. His legs trembled as he sank into madness. When the prison guard brought him back to the prison, Luo Hanjin was in a daze. He kept begging for mercy, with bloodshot eyes and an ashen face. Yun Tianyu watched coldly as the man was dragged away. His expression was cold and tense. Li Hanlin sighed, carried Yun Tianyu in his arms, and slowly left. Agent Li, my heart aches for my mommy. What exactly did she go through? Depression? Misanthropy? What kind of darkness did she go through? My heart hurts so much. Yun Tianyu let him carry him. His little hand clutched at his chest, feeling as if it was about to bleed. Li Hanlin could only sigh. He thought to himself, compared to Yun Shishir, my heart aches for this child more. How should we deal with Mu Wanru next? That woman is vicious. She deserves to die. Yun Tianyu's eyes were dark and gloomy. His heart was slowly filled with hatred. Following that, his lips curled into a sinister smile. I won't let anyone who hurts Mommy off. Mu residence. As Mu Yichen walked down the stairs, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his heart. He paused in his steps and clutched his chest tightly. He felt an inexplicable pain in his heart that almost made him suffocate. Yichen, what's wrong? Seeing his solemn look, Mu Wanru knew that his old illness was acting up. Mu Yichen ignored her question and went down the stairs on his own. Mu Wanru's face stiffened. She thought to herself, this child is not my biological child. He's distant from me and is not close to me at all. Mu Wanru's lips curled into a cold smile as she followed him down the stairs. The servants had already prepared dinner. She could not help asking, where's young master? Daddy's schedule tonight is a direct flight to England to settle an acquisition case. Xiao Yichen said, I overheard it when I passed by the study room yesterday. So busy? Leaning on his walking stick, he slowly made his way downstairs. Wanru, why are you back so late tonight? Mu Wanru felt guilty for a moment and said perfunctorily, I went shopping and bought some clothes for myself. Oh, have a seat. After Mu Sheng took his seat, Mu Wanru and Mu Yichen slowly took their seats. At the dining table, Mu Wanru suddenly raised her head to look at her grandpa and asked in a roundabout manner, Grandpa, there's something I don't know if I should ask. What is it? Mu Wanru cautiously asked. 6 years ago, I was diagnosed as infertile. Is that true? Mu Yichen raised his head and looked at Mu Wanru in confusion. He seemed to have seen the word infertility on TV before. It had been introduced in a program before. It meant that one could not have children. Mu Sheng slowly put down his chopsticks with a solemn look. For this matter, I've invited all the authoritative experts in the country and abroad. They all said that you're infertile and can't have children. Could it be that? I'm really infertile? Mu Wanru pretended to be indignant. Grandpa, I really want to give birth to a child for the Mu family to continue the family line. Grandpa understands your feelings. Mu Sheng knitted his brows. But this matter can't be forced. Chapter 5:21. The latter was stunned. Mu Yichen showed a look of disdain on his face. Younger brother? He only had one younger brother. He would not acknowledge the child she gave birth to. Mu Yichen frowned. Yun Tianyou's cold and arrogant face appeared in his mind. This was the only brother he would acknowledge in his life. He would not acknowledge anyone else. Grandpa, Wanru, this matter can't be rushed. When fate comes, success will follow naturally. The old man hurriedly consoled her, thinking that she was just worried about her child. Mu Wanru knew how to read people's expressions and knew that she would make mistakes if she spoke too much. She was afraid of arousing his suspicion. After all, she could not let anyone know about her pregnancy before she came up with a compromise. Otherwise, she would be finished. After dinner, she felt nauseous for some reason. She endured it and ran to the toilet to retch. A servant passing by saw her and asked with concern, "Young madam, what's wrong?" "I'm fine. Look at how you're vomiting." "I thought it was a sign of pregnancy." Mu Wanru's face stiffened, and she glared at her viciously. The latter knew that she had misspoken and retreated with her head lowered. Mu Wanru looked up at the mirror. Her face was frighteningly pale. "Thank you. You can drop me off here." Yun Shirshir got out of the car and walked to the driver's seat window. She smiled at Qin Zhou. Qin Zhou held the steering wheel and looked at her worriedly. He seemed to be uneasy. "Shirshir, are you okay? You must rest early when you get back. Otherwise, it'll be hard for your body to recover." "Master Qin, don't worry. My body recovers very well. I'll be back to normal after a nap." Yun Shirshir gently patted her chest to comfort him. Qin Zhou was amused by her expression and urged, "All right, then you should hurry back." The car slowly drove away. After Yun Shirshir watched the car leave, she turned around, walked to the door, and unlocked it to enter the house. It was already late. Pushing the door open, the room was cold and empty. The floor-to-ceiling windows were wide open, and the night breeze blew in, lifting the pure, white curtains. There was no one at home. Not long ago, Lee Hanlon called to inform her that he had brought Yu to the bookstore to read. He seemed to like the child a lot. Yu always hung out with the principal. Yun Shirshir placed her bag on the cabinet. Suddenly, she felt a chill. Using the moonlight shining through the window, she walked to the window and closed it. In the enclosed space, she suddenly smelled a wisp of smoke. Why is there the smell of smoke? He had quit smoking many years ago. You would never smoke. Yun Shirshir turned around abruptly and looked around the living room. There was no one in the huge living room. She turned around, but the smell of smoke had faded a lot. She smiled. Was it an illusion? Could it be that she was too sensitive? Feeling a little tired, Yun Shirshir walked to the bedroom door and pushed it open. Just as she entered the room, a tall shadow walked toward her. Yun Shirshir did not even have time to react before she was pressed against the door by the shadow that was right in front of her. The tall and lanky figure easily trapped her in a small space. Yun Shirshir turned pale with fright. Her eyes widened in horror as she looked up. Against the moonlight outside the window, she guessed that the shadow was a young man. Chapter 5:22. There was a familiar and elegant fragrance on the man's body. It was mixed with the faint smell of cigarettes. Yun Shirshir was shocked and angry. In her nervousness, she clenched her fist and swung it at the man's face. However, her fist was easily intercepted by the man. The man held her shoulder with one hand and bent down slightly. He whispered into her ear, "Don't move. It's me. Yun Shirshir's heart skipped a beat. Muyaja? How did he get in? In the darkness, the man's strong aura and unique masculine aura almost overwhelmed her. She had no way of retreating. Why was he here? She was stunned for a moment before she suddenly reacted. This huge villa was his. Moreover, he had also bought this garden bungalow for her. He should have gotten the key, right? Thinking of this, a trace of anger appeared on her face. Just now, when he was frightened, he was still in a state of shock, and his heart was beating rapidly. Why was this man always so self-willed? The fabric of his clothes rubbed against her skin. Through the thin material of his shirt, the man's body temperature was almost ironing her breath. For some reason, Yun Shirshir suddenly thought of Mu Wanru. This afternoon, when she saw her vomiting, she had a lot of doubts and dark clouds in her heart. She suddenly wanted to ask Mu Yaja, did something happen between him and Mu Wanru? To put it more bluntly, did he touch Mu Wanru or any other woman? Or was she the only woman he had from the beginning to the end? She suddenly cared about this question. Before she could react, the man lowered his head and gently covered her lips, sweeping away her breath and the doubts that had yet to come out of her mouth. In the darkness, Mu Yaja couldn't see Yun Shirshir's complicated and hesitant expression. Yun Shirshir couldn't see the tense forbearance on Mu Yaja's face. The kiss was charming and lingering. He seemed to be a little anxious to possess this woman, but he carefully suppressed the desire in his body. She seemed to be a fragile object, and no matter what, he had to treat her gently. His thin lips pressed tightly against hers, almost tyrannically sweeping away her sweet breath. The tip of his tongue gently outlined the outline of her lips, carefully tracing and tasting. It was so gentle that Yun Shirshir felt as if she was being carefully doted on by this man. The temperature in the air rose. Gradually, her originally tense body gradually relaxed, and she tried to respond to his kiss. Undoubtedly, her kissing skills were extremely inexperienced. Mu Yaja felt that this woman was extremely stupid. Even if she was inexperienced, they had kissed more than a few times, so it was time for her to be enlightened. But when he was sucked into her mouth and sucked on her lilac, he was bitten several times by her pearly white teeth. She was clumsy and unreasonably clumsy. He was a little unhappy in his heart, but he also felt that she was much more adorable like this. Thus, he patiently led her and guided her. Following his guidance, Yun Shirshir responded to him bit by bit. At this moment, their breaths were intertwined and their lips were touching. Because their bodies were so close to each other, they could easily feel each other's body temperature. Yun Shirshir could also naturally feel the subtle changes in the man's body. Her face immediately turned hot. Yun Shirshir was pressed against the door by him, almost unable to resist. Chapter 5:23. Mu Yaja lowered his head to look at her, taking in all the embarrassment and coquettishness on her face. He brazenly pressed her against the door and slid his hand under her skirt. Don't. Yun Shirshir was shocked. You had come back at some point. What did this man want to do? Mu Yaja leaned against her ear and teased her white earlobe. Shirshir, I want you. His warm breath brushed against her face. He said her name softly. His tone was affectionate, and there was a hint of desire in it. It was as if he was pleasing her. Shirshir, this man rarely called her that. Now that he said her name in such a tone, she almost lost her ability to resist. This man had the ability to make any woman lose the ability to struggle. While she was lost in thought, the man's hand moved deeper into the unknown territory. Yun Shirshir held his hand tightly and said angrily, "Don't mess around." Mess around? Mu Yaja was a little displeased by her careless choice of words. He just missed her very much. Tonight, he was flying straight to London. There was an acquisition case tomorrow, and it was very important to Dishing Financial Group. He had to win this case. However, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to return for half a month. Thinking that he would not be able to touch this woman for half a month, he was furious. He easily broke free from her resistance. His hand moved even deeper, and his body pressed against hers. Where he ignored her, his movements were a little more ruthless. In a flash, her clothes were stripped down to her shoulders. Yun Shirshir was shocked and angry. Her struggling became more intense. It was not that she did not have any desires, but you might be coming home soon. The first thing he would do when he got home was to make out with her. If the child were to witness this scene, thinking of that embarrassing situation, Yun Shirshir felt her face burning. She glared at the man. In the dark, the man ignored her warning eyes and kissed her again. This time, the kiss was not as gentle and calm as before. Instead, it carried a hint of urgency, as if he wanted to devour her whole. Yun Shirshir dodged his attack, and the man took the opportunity to kiss her neck, biting it lightly. Ah, was this man in heat again? What a beast in human clothing! While they were tearing at each other, there were a few times where they almost went off by accident. Mu Yasha secretly gritted his teeth. He was a little angry, so he increased the strength of his hand. Yun Shirshir was no match for his methods, and in the blink of an eye, her coat was taken off. Yun Shirshir flew into a rage out of humiliation. Muyaja! Yun Shirshir! Muyaja also raised his head and glared at her. His face was filled with dissatisfaction and anger. Are you in heat? You know that I'm in heat. Can't you cooperate with me? Muyaja seemed to feel justified and questioned her instead. Yun Shirshir was shocked by his shamelessness. I'm flying straight to London tonight for an acquisition. You won't be able to see me for half a month. Muyaja grabbed her chin. You really don't want me at all? Yun Shirshir's face and ears turned red from his explicit questioning. Her cheeks burned to the boiling point in an instant. She turned her face away fiercely, and her heart was beating wildly. If the lights were on, Muyaja would definitely see her blushing face because of shyness. Suddenly, the sound of the door closing came from outside. Chapter 5:24. Could it be that Yu was back? The two of them looked at each other. Then, they heard the sound of footsteps outside the door. Then, they heard Yu's cheerful footsteps and an innocent and romantic voice. Stupid mommy, Yu is back. Bam! The little bun seemed to have turned on the lights in the living room. Then, he made a sound of surprise and ran upstairs to look for her. Mommy, Muyaja's eyes twitched. Why didn't this rascal come back earlier or later? Why did he come back at such an unlucky time? Yun Shirshir was also very embarrassed. Her mind was blank, but she didn't dare to respond, and hurriedly put on her coat. In the dark, she couldn't see where he threw the coat. She didn't dare to turn on the lights for fear of making too much noise. Yun Shirshir was so embarrassed that she wanted to die. Why, she felt like she was about to be caught in the act. Where are my clothes? Yun Shirshir used the opportunity when the little Ban went upstairs to look for her clothes. In a hurry, she pushed Muyaja away. However, perhaps because she was too flustered, she didn't bother to turn on the lights. In the dark, she stumbled and bumped into Muyaja's chin. Ugh, the two of them were caught off guard, and their bodies collided. Muyaja was in pain, so he didn't stabilize himself and fell backward. Yun Shirshir's straps got caught on Muyaja's shirt button, and she fell down with her body against his. With a dull thud, the two of them fell to the ground. Muyaja was a little speechless. He muttered, "Stupid woman! How dare you blame me? Don't you know how to turn on the lights first? Damn, What if he comes looking for you after I turn on the lights? Ah, lock the door first. Yun Shirshir quickly got up, but she didn't realize that the strap on her dress was still wrapped around the man's shirt button. She got up, but due to the force of gravity, she fell back onto Mu Yaja's chest. The man was almost touched by her IQ. Your clothes. What do you mean? It caught my button. The man gritted his teeth. Yun Shirshir's face was extremely embarrassed. She immediately reached out to untie it, but she couldn't untie it for a long time. Mu Yaja was both angry and amused. Why did he end up in such an awkward situation when he wanted to spend some time with her before he left the country? Turn on the lights first. Stand up first. How are you going to stand if my clothes are twisted and buttoned up? How am I supposed to turn on the lights with you on top of me? The man was silent for half a second. Where's the switch? Yun Shirshir held her forehead and sighed. She was about to break down. Yun Tianyu wandered around upstairs, but did not find anyone. He then ran to the rooftop to take a look. His mommy had some plants there, and she would usually water them when she got home. There was no one on the rooftop either. The little lad was puzzled. Could it be that she was not home yet? He was a little worried, so he quickly took out his phone and dialed Yun Shirshir's number. After a few seconds of silence, a ringtone was heard from the living room downstairs. Black lines appeared on the little bun's forehead. Was she downstairs? Thus, he hurried downstairs and followed the ringtone to find Yun Shirshir's bag on the cabinet. Was she already home? The corner of his eyes twitched violently. Why did no one respond to his call? Then, was Mommy playing hide-and-seek with him? Mommy, where are you? Yu is home. I want kisses and hugs. The man in the room heard him and was stunned. Why was this little bun so different in front of people and behind them? Chapter 5:25. What a mischievous person. He was cool and arrogant in front of him, but why did he become so adorable in front of Yun Shirshir? Yun Shirshir finally unbuttoned the straps on his shirt. When she heard his soft and adorable voice, she instinctively opened her mouth to respond, but before she could utter a word, she quickly covered her mouth in shock. Both of them looked at each other. Yun Shirshir gestured at Mu Yaja to keep quiet. Shoo, now, even Mu Yaja could not help but feel that the two were not being affectionate and were having an affair. It was as if they were caught red-handed. Yun Shirshir put on her coat and looked around. She walked to the floor-to-ceiling window and pulled it open. Outside was the courtyard. She turned to look at Mu Yaja and urged him in a low voice, "Leave quickly!" Mu Yaja was inexplicably angry and snorted, "Why should I leave?" Yun Shirshir was stunned. Yu is back. You should leave first, okay? I'm not leaving. I haven't kissed or hugged you. Do you think I'll leave just because you want me to? Mu Yaja leaned against the wall elegantly and mimicked Yu's tone. Yun Shirshir's lips twitched violently. Stop fooling around. I'm not fooling around, Mu Yaja said coldly. You're a child, too. Yun Shirshir was so angry that she laughed. Why were the father and son alike? Was it really a matter of genetics? When it came to acting shamelessly, the father and son were exactly alike. Outside the door, Yun Tianyu took a stroll in the bathroom and saw that the light was on through the crack of the door. Yun Shirshir had washed her hands when she came back and forgot to turn off the light. The little bun thought that she was bathing inside, so he leaned against the door and asked softly, "Mommy, are you bathing inside?" There was no response for a while. Then, "Mommy, I'm coming in." Little Munchkin covered his eyes and carefully turned the doorknob to enter. She peeked in the direction of the bathtub through the gaps between her fingers. No one. Little Munchkin crossed his arms in defeat and huffed angrily. Where is Mommy hiding? Went out. How could he not bring his phone with him when he went out? He walked out of the bathroom and looked at his mommy's bedroom. Through the crack in the door, she saw that the lights were off in the room, but there were shadows flashing by. Yun Tianyu cocked a brow in suspicion. He walked to the door and knocked on it. "Mommy, I know you're inside. Can I come in?" Yun Shirshir's lips twitched as she glared at Muyaja. The latter had a relaxed look on his face, and there was no trace of panic on his face. He crooked his finger at her, and then his slender finger gently tapped his cheek as a hint. Even though Yun Shirshir was angry, she couldn't do anything to him. She walked in front of him. The man grabbed her arm and pulled it hard, and she fell into his embrace. Yun Shirshir gritted her teeth, tiptoed, held his handsome face, and kissed his thin lips. The kiss deepened. The kiss was urgent and anxious. Muyaja was a little displeased. This woman actually chased him away for her son? Hence, he bit the corner of her lips. Yun Shirshir pursed her lips in pain and pulled away from his. She glared at him fiercely, asking with her eyes, "Are you satisfied now?" Muyaja looked at her embarrassed expression with a teasing look in his eyes. Seeing that the door was not locked, Yun Tianyu turned the doorknob. Just as he pushed the door open, the lights in the room lit up with a click. Slightly startled, Yun Tianyu looked over. Chapter 526. He saw Yun Shirshir standing by the bed with her hands behind her back. She looked at him with a smile. "Baby, you're back." Yun Tianyu was stunned for a moment before he fixed his eyes on her face. He scanned her from head to toe. Yu Yu's gaze then landed on her neck. There was a faint mark of intimacy there. Although it was not eye-catching, it made Yun Shirshir's snow-white skin look exceptionally red. Yun Tianyu's eyes met hers. He was startled and raised an eyebrow suspiciously. He saw Yun Shirshir standing by the bed with an embarrassed expression. Her clothes were a little messy, especially at the collar, which had some creases. She forced a smile on her face, but it could not hide her panic and embarrassment. Her eyes revealed an unnatural smile, especially under Yu's suspicious gaze, which made her smile look even more awkward and stiff. Yu. Yun Shirshir called out to him awkwardly. Following his gaze, she realized that her clothes were a little wrinkled. She then smiled awkwardly, only to see Yu's eyes still sizing her up. As if he had caught some clues, the expression on his young face darkened. His gaze made her feel extremely awkward. There was a moment of dead silence. Yun Shirshir broke the awkwardness. "Yu, what's wrong with you?" Yu was silent for a moment before he glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. With a strange look, he asked, "Mommy, I called you so many times. Why didn't you reply to me?" "Because, Mommy, are you doing something sneaky?" Yun Shirshir's face turned red as she choked on her words. She had no words to explain. She sat by the bed and patted it. "Come, Yu, sit." She tried to change the topic. Yu was still suspicious. He looked around and saw that the room was neat and tidy. There was nothing out of the ordinary. Only then did he dispel some of his doubts. He walked over and threw himself into Yun Shirshir's arms. "Mommy." Yu frowned when she threw herself into Yun Shirshir's arms. His nose was especially sensitive, and he immediately smelled the fresh and elegant fragrance on Yun Shirshir's body. His sharp nose told him that it was a man's perfume, a little like cologne. When he used to go shopping with his mother, he had smelled the same scent when they passed by the perfume counter. Yu's heart skipped a beat. She felt that this fragrance was strangely familiar. Muyaja? He was here. Yun Shirshir lowered her head and held his smiling face. She kissed him on both cheeks and intimately rubbed the tip of his nose. However, she saw that his expression was a little strange. Yu, what's wrong? Mommy's body smells like perfume." Yu looked at her with a pout and didn't mince his words. Yun sure stuttered, awkwardly. That's Mommy's perfume. Nonsense. Mommy's body smells good. She never wears perfume. You mercilessly exposed her lie. Yun Shurshu's expression froze. Was this child usually so observant? He even knew whether she wore perfume or not. You decided to get to the bottom of this. Hence, he pointed at the red mark on her neck and asked, "What's this?" "Where?" "Here. It's red." Yu narrowed his eyes and continued to ask. Chapter 527. When did he leave it? That bastard. Yu chased after her and asked, "Mommy, what's that?" "It's a mosquito bite." "That's not a mosquito bite." Yu placed his hands on his chest. He was obviously unhappy with her contradictory explanation. She turned around and saw the little bun looking at her suspiciously. He suddenly said, "There's something going on." Silence. Did this child have to be so sensitive? The child was too smart. It wasn't good. She didn't know how to deal with it. Yun Shursher didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She hurriedly went into the bathroom and tidied up her messy clothes in front of the mirror. Yu walked around the room and suddenly found a shoe print on the floor-to-ceiling window. They had hired a cleaner, and a cleaner would come to clean the room regularly every day. The room was always clean. He squatted down and touched the print. It was still fresh and seemed to have been left not long ago. He walked to the floor-to-ceiling window and pushed it open. He walked to the balcony and turned on the lights in the courtyard. He looked around. There was a melodious whistle. Yu's expression changed. He looked in the direction of the sound and saw a tall man standing under a tree in the courtyard with his hands in his pockets. "Who's that?" Mu Yaja slowly walked out from under the tree. Under the light, his handsome face broke into a sinister smirk, which was full of evil intent. He was wearing a shirt with the collar slightly open. There was also a red kiss mark on the same spot as Yun Shursher's. It was bright and eye-catching. Mu Yaja smiled evilly and looked at Yu provocatively. This man was clearly openly provoking him. Yu clenched his fists in anger. His expression turned cold, and he looked unhappy. Mu Yaja, however, seemed to ignore the anger on his face as he turned around and boldly left through the courtyard's back door. When Yun Shursher returned to the room, she saw Yun Tianyu standing on the balcony outside the window. His stiff back showed a hint of anger. "What's wrong? Yu?" Yun Shursher walked over and squatted in front of him. Yun Tianyu's handsome little face scrunched up in sadness. His eyes were brimming with tears. He looked so aggrieved that it was as if the sky was about to collapse on him. His little mouth pouted high into the air. "I'm not happy. I want Mommy's kisses and hugs." He had been working so hard outside, only to find that his dear Mommy had been snatched away by that man. She had been kissed and hugged. She did not feel happy. Yun Shursher immediately hugged him and coaxed him. "You baby, what's wrong?" "Mommy betrayed me." You cried as he rubbed his tears. "Mommy must have other babies in her heart. Yu is no longer the first in her heart." Yun Shursher broke out in a cold sweat and quickly coaxed him. No. You will always be the first in Mommy's heart. No one can replace you. Woo. I don't believe it. Yu complained tearfully. Mommy's heart has changed. Mommy doesn't love you anymore. Yu's heart hurts so much. Woo. It's shattered into pieces. Chapter 528. Nonsense. Yu's heart was fine. How could it be broken into pieces? Come, let Mommy give you a kiss. Yu, don't cry. Thus, she cupped Yu's face in her hands and gave him a big kiss. Yu's tears streamed down his cheeks as he moved his other cheek to her, with an aggrieved look. This side, Yun Shursher quickly added another kiss. "Kiss me on the mouth." Yu pouted his pinkish lips aggrievedly. Yun sure did not know whether to laugh or cry as she gave him a light peck on the lips. Moi. Yu was finally satisfied and stopped crying. The child's face was really like the weather in June. It could change at any moment. He was complaining about her tearfully earlier, but after a few kisses, his tears turned into smiles as he hugged her shoulders. You cursed inwardly. Muyasha, how dare you snatch Mommy from me? Just you wait. The little lad returned to the study room, locked the door, and sat in front of the desk. He turned on the computer system and the remote control. The bookcase slowly opened to reveal a large screen wall. He opened the system interface and typed furiously on the keyboard. The interface soon showed the city's transportation system. Lee Hanlon had previously mentioned to him that Disheng Financial Group had an important acquisition project. Tonight's flight was flying directly to London, England. They were probably on their way to the private airport now. Yun Tianyu propped his head on his hands as his pink lips curled into a devilish smile. He stared at the screen and keyed in a series of commands. He successfully hacked into the system. 10 seconds later, he looked at the crisscrossing route system on the screen with a satisfied look on his face. He quickly glanced at it, and the 10 routes to the Mu Group's private airport appeared in his mind. He sneered and entered another command. He hit the enter key, and the dozens of routes on the screen turned red. Muyaja, you want to play with me? Naive. Hunk, hunk, hunk. Beep, beep, beep. On the Hawaiian elevated highway, the sound of horns and car horns rose and fell one after another, piercing one's eardrums, causing one to be unable to help but feel depressed. Looking from afar, the dense tail lights of cars on the highway, which was tens of kilometers long, made one's scalp tingle. Chairman Mu, there seems to be a traffic jam ahead. The driver turned around and asked anxiously. Muyaja was originally staring at the screen of his laptop and browsing through his emails. Hearing this, he raised his head. Unknowingly, the cars outside the window were packed together, making it difficult to move. What happened? There's a traffic jam. Didn't I tell you to avoid the traffic? Chairman Mu, this road has never been blocked before. It's the fastest route to the airport. The driver defended himself. It seems that there's something wrong with the signal in front. Signal malfunction. Yes. It seems that the signal lights on the outer ring line are malfunctioning, so there's a traffic jam. Damn it. Muyaja raised his wrist to look at the time. There was not much time left before tonight's final flight. If he missed tonight's flight, if they missed the flight, they would have to submit a new application for the private flight route. If that happened, they would not be able to make it in time for tomorrow's acquisition. It was not rush hour at all. Besides, the capital's traffic system had always been very stable. Why would the signal malfunction for no reason? The traffic police hurried over to unblock the traffic jam. They were in a terrible fix. Chapter 529. Muyaja sped all the way to the airport and almost missed the flight. Just as he was about to board the plane, his phone rang. Muyaja picked up the call. The little lad's devilish yet childish voice came from the other end. Muyaja, this is what you get for openly provoking me. Muyaja was stunned. Did you do all this? The man's handsome brows arched in disbelief. How could such a huge city's transportation system be so easily hacked by a 7-year-old child? If the Minister of Transportation knew that the culprit behind the system's paralysis was a 7-year-old boy, how would he feel? Who else do you think I did it? In the study room, Yun Tianyu had his earpiece on as he fiddled with the 17th order Rubik's Cube. His lips curled into a playful smile. I'm really sorry for almost delaying your flight. I just wanted to see if you had the ability to catch the last flight. Scheming. Extremely scheming. He actually used such a method to tease him. Muyaja was not angry, though. Instead, he was shocked by the boy's ability to be able to destroy and even paralyze the transportation system in a short period of time. It took an hour for it to return to normal. It was unbelievable that such an ability came from a 6-year-old child. You must be very surprised. Yun Tianyu placed the restored Rubik's Cube on the study table. With his hands clasped together and his chin under hhis head, he asked quietly, "I heard that you're investigating me. Haven't you been investigating the chairman of Leji Holdings?" Mu Yaja's face instantly tensed up. He had an inexplicable premonition. "Mu Yaja, since you're my daddy, I'll tell you in secret." Yun Tianyu looked at the phone and casually enunciated each word. "I'm the chairman of Leji Holdings." "You?" Mu Yaja was stunned. The chairman of the world's largest toy supplier, Leji Holdings, was actually him. Yun Tianyu smiled. He could vaguely imagine Mu Yaja's shocked expression right now. There was no harm in revealing his true identity to him. This identity alone was enough to shock him. However, his identity was definitely not as simple as he had imagined. If he told his father that he was not only the chairman of Leji Holdings, but he was also one of the top executives of Hurricane Group, would his father be scared to death? If he knew that he controlled the entire East Asian arms market, what kind of shocked expression would he have? If he knew that the Hurricane Group's Sky-Eye system was developed by him, and if he knew that the toys he designed were used by the Hurricane Group in military equipment, what kind of expression would he have? But he wouldn't let his daddy know about this. He would not let him find out about these secrets. If anyone could find out everything that they wanted to, wouldn't he lose a lot of face? This was his secret. Yun Tianyu's pink lips lightly pursed as he leisurely said, "Mu Yaja, your son isn't as simple as you think." Mu Yaja raised his eyebrows slightly. He felt that this little fellow was far beyond his imagination. "Does your mommy know about this?" "She doesn't, and I won't let her know either," Yun Tianyu said. "Mu Yaja, there's something I want you to know." Before you chase after my mommy, can you deal with that fiancé of yours first?" Yun Tianyu coldly asked. Chapter 530. Don't tell me that you don't know Mu Wanru's background. You should have known what kind of person she is. "I know." Yun Tianyu was stunned. "Then, why haven't you made a move yet? You don't have to interfere in this matter." Mu Yaja did not know where this little bun had gotten this information from. While he was surprised, he was also shocked by the boy's formidable means. No matter what, he did not wish for Yun Tianyu to interfere in this matter. This was what he should do as a man. Naturally, he would not let his son step in. Yun Tianyu snorted. "I can't be bothered either. Anyway, so what if he exposed Mu Wanru? He did not wish for his mother to return to the Mu family and become the so-called Missy of the Mu family. He disdained it. Status, power, and wealth, whatever the Mu family had, he had as well. Returning to the Mu family might not be a good thing for his mother. It was not that he had not met Grandpa Mu before, but he did not like him from the very beginning. He had a nagging feeling that this old man was not a simple character. From his eyes, Yun Tianyu could see too many things. His intuition told him that returning to the Mu family would bring more misfortune than fortune to his mother. After investigating Mu Wanru, Li Hanlin found out another thing. Yun Shirshir had been in a car accident when she was 9 years old. That accident was very tragic. Out of the 3 people in the car, 1 was dead, 1 was injured, and 1 was missing. He heard that Yun Shirshir's mother had passed away in a car accident along with the car. Li Hanlin, on the other hand, found out that the car accident was not a simple accident. He heard that in the early years, Mu Sheng doted on his adopted daughter, Mu Qingcheng, very much. For generations, the Mu family had a golden carved jade pendant that was passed down to the male, and not the female. It was only passed down to the heir. At that time, Mu Lianqing was the Mu family's second heir, yet Mu Sheng gave this jade pendant to Mu Qingqing as a personal keepsake. One could imagine how important she was to him. Later, she fell in love with a smuggler and got pregnant before marriage. This made Grandpa Mu furious, and even forced her to abort the child in her womb. Mu Qingqing refused to comply, and left the Mu family. From then on, her whereabouts were unknown. In order to find his beloved daughter, he did not hesitate to turn the capital upside down. A few years later, it was rumored that Mu Qingqing was hunted down by the underworld. Her car overturned during the chase, and she fell off a cliff. But was it really because he was being hunted by the underworld? Li Hanlin even suspected that Mu Qingqing's car accident had something to do with this man. Rumor had it that Mu Sheng loved his daughter, so much that his love for Mu Qingqing was almost twisted. If that was the case, then the Mu family was no different from a tiger's den. Naturally, he would not let his mommy return to such a scary place. Since you like my mommy, please don't let her be accused of something she didn't do. Before you chase after my mommy, clean up all the women around you. Remember, this is my bottom line. Yun Tianyu said coldly, showing no mercy to her. This was undoubtedly a negotiation with him. There was no doubt that Yun Tianyu had the right to negotiate with him. My mommy is beautiful, gentle, and has such an outstanding son like me. Do you think she can only have you? He felt disgusted at the thought of what Mu Wanru had done to bully his mommy. Chapter 5:31. However, if Mu Wanru did not know the immensity of heaven and earth and came knocking on his door again and again, he did not mind getting rid of her personally. He did not want her to be an eyesore. Mu Yaja did not know how far his investigation had progressed. However, he kept Mu Wanru alive because he had his own plans. Similarly, at least for now, he would not let Yun Shishir return to the Mu family. He was stingy with his explanation and only said, "Don't worry, I'll handle it well." Mu Yaja, don't let your son down. Yun Tianyu raised a brow, satisfied with his reply. After hanging up the phone, Yun Tianyu walked out of the study room. Yun Shishir had already prepared dinner for him. Yun Shishir, who had no idea what had just happened, saw the little lad walk out of the study room and immediately called out, You come and have dinner." Okay, it was rare for Yun Shishir to cook, and Yu was extremely touched. When he walked to the dining table and saw the 2 bowls of instant noodles on it, Yu's face darkened and the corner of his mouth twitched. "What is this?" "Noodles," Yun Shishir answered in embarrassment. "What's that charred lump on the noodles?" Yu pointed stiffly at the lump of unknown yellowish substance floating on the surface of the noodles. Yun Shishir nervously answered, "It's a poached egg. I didn't pay attention to the heat when I was frying it." "Then what about this?" Yu fiddled with his chopsticks, and some diced meat floated in the broth. "Square leg meat. It's more flavorful after being diced," Yun Shishir explained. You remained silent. "Mommy, I want it to be simpler. Besides, the instant noodles are delicious. You don't be picky. Mommy has worked very hard." Yun Shishir looked guilty and begged for mercy with her hands clasped together. "Mommy, your cooking skills are so poor. Aren't you afraid that you won't be able to get married?" Yun Shishir said without thinking, "I'm not afraid." Why? Yu sat down at the table and asked curiously. "Because Yu's cooking is the best. Whoever marries mommy is simply blessed by the heavens," Yun Shishir said with a face full of satisfaction. Yu blushed and said, "Mommy is the worst." Dinner was the simplest of instant noodles, fried eggs, and diced meat. It seemed a little shabby. However, she hadn't cooked for a long time. She didn't have much inspiration after entering the kitchen, so she simply made 2 bowls of noodles. It was simple and convenient. Even though Yu complained, she still finished the broth without leaving a single drop behind. It was his dearest mommy who cooked it, after all. Even if the standard of the fried eggs was not satisfactory, they were cooked by his mommy, after all. He would not be picky about it. Yun sure felt a little guilty. Yu, isn't mommy too irresponsible? I cooked instant noodles for you to eat. Yu said faintly, mommy still has self-awareness, right? Yun sure was silent. Forget it. I forgive you. Yu put down his bowl and chopsticks, looked up at her, and smiled. My mommy is only responsible for being beautiful, while Yu is responsible for earning money to support the family. You are only 7 years old. How can you earn money to support the family? Yun sure was amused by him. What if I say that I can? Yun Tianyu suddenly asked. Huh. Yun sure did not understand what he meant. Forget it. Mommy is so stupid. He still did not have the courage to confess everything to her. Forget it. Let's wait a while more. I'll find a suitable opportunity to confess everything to her. Chapter 532. On the private jet, Mu Yaja sat leisurely on the sofa, stirring his coffee absent-mindedly. His eyes were gloomy and deep. Yun Tianyu's arrogant words still rang in his ears. For the past 2 days, he had indeed ordered people to investigate who Leji Holdings' senior board members were. Never would he have thought that the chairman of Leji Holdings a year ago was actually Yun Tianyu. A year ago? How old was he? 6 years old? A 6-year-old kid sitting on the board of directors? Who would believe that? It was no wonder. Even Leji Holdings' senior management had not seen this mysterious chairman before. If anyone were to find out that the chairman was actually a 7-year-old kid, no one would be able to accept it. What was the relationship between Yun Tianyu and Hurricane Group? He found out that the chairman was inextricably linked to the Hurricane Group. Could it be that Yun Tianyu had a close relationship with the Hurricane Group? He had threatened him to get rid of the women around him. Yun Tianyu had specifically emphasized Mu Wanru. Could it be that he had already found out about Mu Wanru's background? Mu Yaja slowly put down his coffee cup with a frown. He had indeed found out about Mu Wanru's identity long ago. 15 years ago, when Mu Sheng brought Mu Wanru back to the Mu family, he did not suspect her identity because of the token she had given him. Because he was obsessed with Mu Qingqing, he poured all his love and longing for her to Mu Wanru. Grandpa Mu's love for her aroused Mu Lianqing's suspicions, and he proposed to do a paternity test for Mu Wanru. Mu Sheng also seriously scrutinized Mu Wanru's facial features. Indeed, there was a huge difference between her and Mu Qingqing. There was no trace of Mu Qingqing in her eyes. He was also a little apprehensive about whether she was Mu Qingqing's real daughter. However, when the paternity test results were released, everyone was convinced that the possibility of her being the daughter of Mu Wanru's parents was higher. However, as Mu Wanru became an adult, even Grandpa Mu had many doubts about her identity. She didn't look like her at all. Regardless of appearance or temperament, they were completely different. Mu Sheng was also suspicious of her. Although her appearance was beautiful and delicate, she didn't look like that woman's at all, which aroused his suspicion. Hence, Grandpa Mu secretly ordered someone to take her hair for a DNA test. In the end, there was still no problem. Mu Yaja was suspicious and secretly investigated, only to find out that Mu Wanru had secretly bribed the people in the genetics department in the hospital to change the DNA test results. Because of this, the old man was convinced. However, the real DNA report had been secretly destroyed by Mu Wanru. Mu Yaja was suspicious. Since she was not the real Mu Qingqing's daughter, Then what was the matter with the DNA report from 15 years ago? Could it be that someone had secretly snuck in? He followed these clues and investigated further. Soon, he found out the identity of Mu Wanru. The paternity report from 15 years ago was also secretly tampered with. It was just that no one knew who had tampered with it. Mu Wanru's identity was fake, but the evidence was conclusive. However, Muyaja did not make it public immediately. At that time, he did not care whether his fiancée was real or fake. Chapter 533. As the rightful future head of the Mu family, his marriage had always been decided by the family. At that time, he could not even control his own marriage. He accepted it without resistance. Alas, when it came to Mu Wanru, he could not even lay a finger on her. Hence, on the eve of their engagement, he announced to Mu Wanru that she was infertile when he did a health checkup for her. Without a doubt, Mu Wanru was healthy and could conceive a healthy baby. However, the authoritative professor that Muyaja had bribed claimed that she was infertile. This news was like a bolt from the blue, and Mu Wanru was dealt a heavy blow. Her inability to conceive meant that her so-called young Madame Mu was merely a title in name to the Mu family, which valued the continuation of the family line. The Mu group had the most authoritative medical research center. Hence, even though Mu Wanru was unwilling to accept the truth of her infertility, she did not doubt it. Mu Wanru was heartbroken when she learned that she was infertile, but she could only accept the reality helplessly. Mu Sheng, on the other hand, felt that it was a pity. Hence, the surrogacy contract was formed. However, it was also because of this that he accidentally found out that Yun Shishir was Mu Qingqing's biological child. Fate had played a huge joke on him. Yun Shishir woke up early in the morning. Yun Yeqing had sent Yun Tianyu to kindergarten. Before he left, he specially prepared breakfast for her and left a note with his neat and delicate handwriting. "Mommy, Yu is going to school. I wish you all the best for today's opening ceremony." Fighting. Yun Shishir was surprised. This little guy's handwriting was really beautiful. Hence, she ate happily with Yu's breakfast. When she was ready to leave the house, she saw a long Bentley and a Mercedes-Benz parked at the entrance. A few men in black suits stood respectfully at the entrance. When they saw her, their gazes fell on her with a swoosh. Yun Shishir was so taken aback that she took a step back. She was quite taken aback by the grandeur of the event. "You guys are?" "Miss Yun, we are under President Mu's orders to escort you to the film studio for the opening ceremony." "Chairman Mu?" Yun Shishir was stunned for a moment before she reacted. "Muyaja? Why did he make such a big scene?" Yun Shishir suddenly recalled Qin Zhou's complaint to him that day. Muyaja had given Lin Fengtian an ultimatum. She was not allowed to have intimate physical contact with any male actors. Not to mention kissing, even holding hands would require a substitute. Lin Fengtian was so angry that he almost had a stroke. At first, she thought it was a joke. However, when she saw this scene, she suddenly realized that Muyaja was serious. This man was so asterisk, 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 such a perverted possessiveness. He had already flown directly to London, England, but he still sent a group of bodyguards and the film crew to monitor her. If Lin Fengtian knew about this, he would probably vomit blood from anger. The man in the suit did not say much. He opened the car door and gestured for her to get in. Yun Shishir laughed dryly. "You don't have to make such a big scene, right? I can go by myself." "Miss Yun, this is Chairman Mu's order. Please don't make things difficult for us," the man in the suit said in a low voice, but his tone was firm. Yun Shishir walked over with an unnatural expression and got into the car. Chapter 5:34. Today was the opening ceremony of the Green Apple. The venue was Gwacheong Film and Television Base, and all the staff of the production team were waiting there early in the morning. The opening ceremony was very grand, and there were many superstars gathered. The huge production team, from editing, makeup, lighting, art, and directing team, was one of the best in the country. The cast was also very luxurious. Apart from Gu Xingze, Yan Bingqing, Yang Mi, Li Jiuxian, and Song Tianyang, even the few supporting actors who did not have many scenes were all C-listers in the industry. It was obvious that the main cast was very star-studded. In comparison, Yun Shishir, a newcomer who had just signed with Huanyu, was able to join such a production team, which made many people envious. In order to make it in time for the opening ceremony, Gu Xingze flew back from Paris overnight. When his nanny van slowly drove into the film studio, the reporters, who had been waiting for a long time, immediately swarmed forward and surrounded the car. At the same time, many Saising fans who had been hiding in the parking lot all night also came out. They chased after the nanny van all the way and shouted their support lines like crazy. Xingze, Xingze, I'm Wang Xinyao. Xingze, Xingze, love you, Xingze. So handsome, sob, sob, sob. I finally see Xingze in person. Cries, ear-piercing screams, and excited support. The sudden situation at the scene caught everyone off guard. The spotlights were flashing nonstop. The chaotic scene was very upsetting. Dozens of microphones were stretched high in front of the van door, and the crowd was crowded. Everyone wanted to interview the superstar first before the opening ceremony. Gu Xingze's words were enough to make the headlines in the entertainment industry. The media reporters sharpened their heads and blocked the entrance of the van. They were secretly competing with each other, pushing and shoving. Unlike Gu Xingze, when the nanny van of another supporting role in the production team stopped at the parking lot, no reporters came forward to block the door. Her cold and cheerless appearance was worlds apart from Gu Xingze's situation. Other stars lacked exposure, so they did not hesitate to hype themselves up to get exposure. However, Gu Xingze did not lack exposure at all. Wherever he went, in the car, Gu Xingze was wearing sunglasses and a mask. He was looking at the crowd outside the window with a gloomy face. He was sitting motionlessly in the car, listening to the demo album with headphones in his ears. The assistant beside him was so anxious that he was sweating profusely. He quickly contacted the security personnel of the film crew. Yes, the parking lot is here. It's all paparazzi. Did you clear the area or not? The interviews will be held after the opening ceremony. Xingze won't be accepting any interviews now. Yes, quickly come and maintain order. After hanging up the phone, everyone in the car quietly waited for rescue. The driver looked at the bustling scene outside the window and couldn't help but sigh. These paparazzi are really going all out just to get a headline. Today is the opening ceremony of the Green Apple. These paparazzi booked the entire hotel 2 days ago so that they could interview Xingze first, the assistant said helplessly. Didn't the production team arrange an interview for Xingze? Chapter 5:35. The assistant sneered and explained the interview script was prepared by the production team in advance. The reporters can't ask whatever they want. Soon, the security guards of the production team rushed over and began to clear the scene. These media reporters were unwilling to give up. After a few words, they got entangled with the security guards. Accompanied by the occasional shouting and shoving, the crowd pushed and shoved. A few obsessive fans blended into the crowd and clung to the car door crazily, banging on the car window excitedly. Screams rose and fell. Xingze! Ah, Xingze! Xingzi, I love you, I love you. You'll always be my Prince Charming. Hubby. A few obsessive fans finally saw their idol's face up close. They could no longer hold back their excitement, and tears streamed down their cheeks. Gu Xingzi ignored them. The assistant was stunned and speechless. *CK. Must they be so crazy? Do these people have any integrity? This is too exaggerated. The opening ceremony is about to start. What's wrong with the production team? Why is the security so bad? They can't even clear the scene. What should we do? Someone complained. I guess the production team didn't expect Xingzi's popularity to be so terrifying. Yun Shishir sat in the car. As soon as the car drove into the parking lot, she could hear the ear-piercing noise of the crowd through the car window. She looked out of the car window in surprise, only to see a nanny van surrounded by a crazy crowd. Among them, there were the security guards of the production team. Many media reporters carried their cameras and held recording pens. They blocked the front of the car and refused to budge. There were also many fanatical fans banging on the windows and doors as if they wanted to shatter the car window. The crazy scene made everyone speechless. What was going on? Yun Shishir shuddered with fear as she watched. In the past, she had only seen such a scene on television. However, at this moment, the feeling of being in the situation was terrifying. The car came to a steady stop. Yun Shishir got out of the car. At this moment, the sun was already a little dazzling. The bodyguards immediately held up an umbrella to shield her from the sun. The group of people carefully hugged her and walked quickly to the set. Not far away, a sharp-eyed media reporter saw her and exclaimed, Isn't that Yun Shishir? Oh my God, is that Yun Shishir? Everyone was extremely surprised and followed his line of sight. Yun Shishir had just gotten out of a Mercedes-Benz minivan, and a group of bodyguards in black surrounded her in the center of the crowd. There were more than 10 bodyguards in front and behind her, and the extravagance was frightening. All the reporters present were familiar with the name Yun Shishir. At Huanyu's cocktail party, Yun Shishir was dressed to the nines as Gu Xingzi's female companion. She shocked the world and stole the limelight from many A-list female stars. Behind the scenes, many people were secretly speculating about the identity of this Yun Shishir. For a newcomer who had yet to debut to be able to attend Huanyu's annual cocktail party, and as the Heavenly King's female companion at that, it was truly enviable. After the reception, he successfully signed a contract with Huanyu's headquarters and officially debuted. As soon as she debuted, she was handpicked by Lin Fengtian to be the female lead in his new movie, becoming the new generation of Lady Phoenix. However, what made people speechless was that the manager she signed with was actually Qinzhou, the person who made Gu Xingzi a superstar. Could it be that she had some shocking background? She could actually make 2 A-list actresses, Yang Mi and Yan Bingqing, to be her foil? Chapter 536. Hence, a group of reporters scrambled to get close to Yun Shishir. When Yun Shishir saw the reporters carrying big and small bags and cameras rushing toward her like a wave, her expression changed, and she instinctively took a step back. Immediately, a bodyguard stood in front of her and blocked the reporters for her. The bodyguards sent by Muyaja were all top experts. They were well-trained and did not care about the paparazzi at all. The bodyguards stood there with cold expressions. They were tall and strong, and their aura was shocking. Just their aura alone was enough to suppress the reporters. When the reporters saw this, they could not help but feel a little guilty and stopped in their tracks. What's going on? Why are the paparazzi running away? In the car, Gu Xingzi's assistant noticed that the reporters were suddenly rushing in one direction. Puzzled, He followed the direction they were heading and saw a group of reporters chasing after an elegant-looking woman with their cameras raised. The bodyguards kept chasing them away. The paparazzi did not dare to go too far and could only follow behind unwillingly. The bodyguards protected Yun Shirshir and left quickly. The scene was orderly. Yun Shirshir, the female lead of this movie. She's here too. But what a grand display. The assistant was dumbfounded. Gu Xingze turned around and looked through the car window at Yun Shirshir, who was in the middle of the crowd. His gaze deepened. The assistant patted him on the shoulder. "Get out of the car. Now, Xingze." Thanks to Yun Shirshir, the paparazzi were chasing after her. The assistant got out of the car. Coincidentally, a few bodyguards from the production team rushed over and chased the sightseeing fans out. The bodyguards protected Gu Xingze and rushed to the venue. "Sister Bingqing, is that girl the Yun Shirshir you were talking about? The newbie who talked back to you last time?" After Yen Bingqing got out of the car, the assistant beside her pointed at Yun Shirshir's back and asked with a displeased expression. The latter snorted coldly as a look of contempt appeared on her face. "It's this B***TCH. She actually dared to embarrass me during the trial shoot. She even dared to talk back to me. She doesn't know her place." I heard that she landed on the set out of nowhere. Could it be that she was taken advantage of? Otherwise, with her standard, how could she have so many resources when she just debuted? One look, and I can tell that she has a shady background. Yen Bingqing said viciously. "If it weren't for her, the female lead would have been me." The assistant quickly agreed. "That's right, Sister Bingqing. When the time comes to join the crew, show her who's boss. Don't think that you can steal the limelight just because you're the female lead." "Humph, there's no need to rush." Yen Bingqing was still rational and waved her hand. "Let's talk about this later and see how she performs. If she doesn't know her place and wants to fight with me, I don't mind teaching her a lesson." Sister Bingqing, you're an A-lister." "She's not even an A-lister. Who knows if this movie will become famous after spending so many resources on her? Who knows, she might become the poison of the box office in the end. That would be interesting." All right, the opening ceremony is about to start. The media is already here. "Let's hurry over," Yen Bingqing instructed, and the assistant immediately followed behind. At the venue of the opening ceremony, the entire crew of more than 100 people had been waiting for a long time. Chapter 537. The main cast and crew were all present. Yun Shirshir was surprised to find that Junemo was also present. She immediately walked over and greeted her with a smile. "Junemo, you're here too." Junemo smiled at her. "Yes, Qin Zhou rushed me over to play a cameo role." "What role?" "The name in the drama is Su Qi." Junmo thought for a moment and said, "I worked overnight on the script, so I'm not very familiar with the character." "I think I have a scene with your character." Su Qi is Yin Xiaochuan's first love in the drama. However, it's a male character. Yun Shirshir suddenly broke out in cold sweat. She sized Junemo up. Indeed, in terms of appearance, Junemo was very tall and slender. She had neat short hair and a handsome face. She was well dressed and was very suitable for the role of a beautiful young man. However, it was rare for a woman to dress up as a man. Junmo's expression did not change. "I landed in the production team out of nowhere. Originally, this role had already been decided, but Qin Zhou snatched it from me in order to open up a career for me." At this point, Junmo could not help but feel a little guilty. This role was originally set for a new generation of young hunks, but she had snatched it out of nowhere. Moreover, she had even played a role. It was probably infuriating. Yun Shirshir understood what she meant. Qin Zhou was hoping that she would develop into an actress, The green apple was a very good resource. Many new generation actors were racking their brains to get involved, even if it was just a supporting role, with few scenes. Jun Mo might be able to attract countless fans with this role. Lin Fengtian's movie focused on youth and was very popular among young people. Young people were the largest consumer group in the movie market. Moreover, the character of Su Qi was very popular. It was no wonder that so many young hunks were lining up to get this role. In the original novel, this character's popularity was second only to Yin Dongyu's. Even Li Jiuxian did not manage to get this role because his facial features did not match the image in Lin Fengtian's mind. Handsome, gentle, devoted, and sunny, he fit the image of a Prince Charming in the hearts of many girls. In the script, he had many touching scenes with Yin Xiaochuan. Regardless of gender, Jun Mo was very suitable for this role. Jun Mo smiled and said, "I heard that there's a kissing scene between Yin Xiaochuan and Su Qi in the script. Sure, you don't mind giving me your first screen kiss, do you?" Yun Shishi's face immediately turned red. She pursed her lips and smiled shyly. Jun Mo was touched by her pure smile and couldn't help but reach out to stroke her head. "All right, I was just teasing you. Don't take it seriously. Jun Mo, I realize that you're quite a boyfriend." Jun Mo was taken aback. Then she smiled and said, "How about I be your boyfriend?" She leaned over and inched closer to her. Her expression was so gentle that one couldn't help but sink into it. Yun Shishi was in a daze as she stared at the woman's approaching face. Her heart started to beat wildly. Jun Mo looked at her reddening face with interest and couldn't help but chuckle. "Shishi, you're so cute. Don't tease me." Behind them, Qin Zhou walked over and glared at the two of them. "The opening ceremony is about to begin. Hurry up and stand in line." Chapter 538. The opening ceremony officially began. First, the director and executive producer went on stage to speak to the media. Following that, the representatives from the various departments of the production team went on stage to offer incense. Finally, as one of the two main leads, Yun Shishi, who was Gu Xingze, naturally had to go on stage to offer incense. Yun Shishi and Gu Xingze went on stage face to face, and the media erupted in cheers. The appearance of the two main leads was undoubtedly the climax of the opening ceremony. Youth movies were very strict about the looks of the main leads. Yun Shishi and Gu Xingze were the epitome of reverse aging. One was 24 years old, and the other was 28 years old. When they stood together, they were the perfect match for the male and female leads in the original novel. Yun Shishi had specially chosen a snow-white dress today, which accentuated her well-proportioned figure. Her luscious black hair cascaded down her shoulders like satin, and her porcelain-like face was pure and elegant. Gu Xingze wore a snow-white shirt and black slim pants. His simple outfit exuded a youthful aura. His delicate facial features were youthful and handsome. His skin was fair and clear, and his eyes were clear. Therefore, even though he was 28 years old, he did not feel out of place when he played Yin Dongyu from high school to university. When the two of them stood together, there was no need for post-production editing. Their good looks seemed to have established the foundation of the movie's box office. The media reporters standing below the stage were all amazed. Rumor had it that Lin Fengtian had a strict eye for talent. He was very precise about the positioning of actors and had a unique eye for choosing actors. At first, they were more or less doubtful about why Yun Shishi was chosen as the female lead. However, looking at the two of them on stage, they could only feel the beauty of youth and the kindness that time had shown them. It made them jealous. Lin Fengtian had chosen her for a reason. Whether it was in terms of looks or temperament, Yun Shirshir was qualified for this role, compared to the previous female lead candidates, Yen Bingqing, Yang Mi, and Yun Shirshir. Although they were about the same age, their looks were obvious. Yun Shirshir and Gu Xingze looked at each other, then walked to the tribute table and lit up an incense stick. Gu Xingze lowered his head and lit the incense. The two of them bowed together. After offering incense, it was time for the two main actors to interview each other. Hello, Yun Shirshir. I'm a reporter from Phoenix Media. Please talk about how you feel about playing the role of Yin Xiaochuan. Yun Shirshir, who had received on-the-spot training, only needed a few seconds to come up with a draft. She smiled and said, "Thank you for your question. First of all, I am very happy to be able to work with such an excellent team. Director Lin Fengtian was a very responsible and dedicated director who pursued perfection in his film career. The atmosphere on the set of The Green Apple was very good. He felt very honored to be able to work with so many outstanding friends. I like the script of The Green Apple very much. I've read the original novel before. The character of Yin Xiaochuan is brimming with youthfulness and dares to love and hate. I will try my best to do my best. Finally, please advise me." As soon as he finished speaking, there was a round of applause. "Hello, Gu Xingze. Can you also talk about how you feel about acting in this movie?"